people start rolling in.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. It's almost started up. My thing's gonna freak out one time here because whenever I hit this, yeah, there's a couple people sitting around.
Let's see, where are you? There you are.
We're just gonna show up. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed the thumbnail, and I noticed the.
I couldn't resist it. I was looking for a silhouette for it, and I'm like, this.
Yeah, I noticed the silhouette. I was like, well, so on my IG, so I was wondering if you chose the silhouette based on like the hoodie image, and I was like, I wonder if he couldn't find the image, and that's why he went with that.
I was gonna go for just a hoodie silhouette, and like you said, like that's actually what I was looking for. And I was like, that one came up, and when I put silhouettes with hoodies, that was the top one. I'm like, I don't know how, but that's even funnier. I got to go with that one.
That's no problem.
Gotta have fun, right?
For sure. Sure, that's what the hobby's all about.
If you're not having fun, then there's no point in doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. Before we get more in the chat, I was pre-recording with the Green Shiz last night, and yeah, that was a completely fun, pre-recording. And we talked about it at the very end, and I think it was just simply because the live chat wasn't involved, and we had a little conversation about that earlier. But yeah, the fact that we didn't have live chat and it was just a one-on-one, and I said, you know what, I think that might have been it. Maybe that's the reason why it was a little bit more fun. We didn't have to like engage as much. The way you put it is like, yeah, that I can just focus on you instead of focusing on the chat and then going back and forth and whatnot.
Well, that's just it. Sometimes you can, sometimes it's nice to just have a conversation with two people, but because sometimes the chat can almost get distracting when you're in a conversation because sometimes you're trying to read what they're doing while listening, and it can get kind of off track sometimes. You can get off track of the discussion that you're trying to have. So, and tonight we really didn't have anything necessarily set up for a discussion more than just kind of talk and have a relaxing Friday night here.
And those are the ones I like. The ones with no agendas, no list, no topics. Let's just go for it.
Anything can come up. Anybody wants to say something, we can go on a tangent. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know that I brought this guy back out again because I think I wore this. What was it, like last week in the middle of the live, and but Northwoods, being from Wisconsin, and they've got the Green Bay Packers, and arguably the best rivalry in sports ever. Mm-hmm. Bears and Packers, hoping that Northwoods would bring his Packers jersey out, but
I could go. I go grab my hat. Just throw my hat on quick.
Yeah, I lived there again for like 17 years, and man, would I get it every season. I would hear it. Hear it, and I had that one season. I'm forgetting the year now. Was it 2005, 2005, 2000? I think it was 2005, maybe 2006, where the Bears went to the Super Bowl against the Indianapolis Colts. The one where Devin Hester Super Bowl kickoff. Devin Hester ran it back for a touchdown.
Yep.
And we thought it was over. Bear fans thought it was over, and that was it. And no, that wasn't the case, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, defense championships.
No, defenses. You got to have both at some point. So. Yeah, no, I remember that when that happened, and I remember opening kickoff, came right to Devin Hester, he caught it, and he was gone. It's like, really? This game is already over 3 seconds, what was it, 5 seconds in, they were up 6 points, and it was like, really? They're going to go this route right off the bat? And yeah, they just couldn't quite hold her together. They had some really good defensive, even I think they had one defensive pick six in that game too, if I remember right.
I believe so, yeah.
They had.
That Tillman?
I think so.
I think, yeah.
I remember the defense, the special teams and the defense actually scored more points than the offense in that Super Bowl, I believe. And
that might have been the case for the season. Was that the case for the season?
It was.
Maybe not, but it was, right? That was the case for the season.
Yeah. Well, even the championship game, the defense scored 4 touchdowns in the championship game going to the Super Bowl, and then the
Right.
defense scored one, and then they had the off special teams. So the special teams and defense scored more points that season than the offense did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about all I can hang my head on. Is that year. I'm only
Well,
34 years old. I wasn't around for the 87 Super Bowl, so
no, I would have been a year old at that point, so I wasn't there for that.
I wasn't even a thought. So
You're a little bit further out, so. So, anyways, what do we got going on in the chat? Anything good? Shiny monster cards that bug you most?
shiny. Let me see. Again, my chat disappeared. What's up, Magikarp, Derek Lavender, Felipe, Oak. Shiny monster cards that bug you the most. I'm assuming they're referring to a Pokemon card.
I'm guessing they might be talking about possibly the new Radiance cards coming out. There's the
Okay. I have
Radiance
not
cards.
seen. I have
I,
not seen the set. I think the one that's been kind of floating around has been the Steelix.
yes, I've seen the Steelix one floating around. So I've seen, I don't know if it's the real cards or not, the Blastoise Venusaur was kind of leaked. I don't know if anymore it's hard to tell if it's actually a rendering. You know, someone's doing it like the original. Remember the original Pokemon Go set came out and someone put out their what the cards are going to look like, and it's like, well, I hope they don't do that. That was absolutely horrendous. So,
No, I haven't taken a look a lot. I typically don't deep dive into the new sets. I'll
no,
take a glance. I'll look at the Japanese version because that's usually what comes out. Obviously, the earliest. And I'll just take a glance. I'll take a look at maybe just what pops out, and then that's it. Just a once over, and then
yeah,
that's it.
that's typically what I've been doing too. Like I said, Brilliant Stars was the first set. I did no in-depth viewing of it, and I actually enjoyed the set so much more because it's like before that when I was doing like the marketing and looking at all these sets, it's like by the time they get here, you're so sick of seeing the cards and
Yeah.
discussing them. It's like I get to the point where I'm like, no, I'm just not doing it anymore. I can wait until afterwards and go from there.
What would be the not Starbirth, not Battle Region, right? That would be Time Gazer.
That has the shiny.
Yeah. Or is that Battle
Yeah,
Region?
trying to remember. I think that they're in. Are they in the Go set?
Oh, that's the Go set. All
I
right.
I might be. I'm not 100% sure. I know it's not an Astral Radiance, and the only other one that's got some information out on it now or partial lists is the Go set. So maybe the Shining Pokemon are in Go set.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. I'm way off on that.
Radiant Pokemon now. They're not shiny. They're radiant.
Yeah, what's your take on the Pokemon Go set? I've shared my thoughts a few times in the last few lives on the Go set. I'm curious what yours is.
I'm gonna be biased to it, and the only reason I'm really gonna be biased towards liking it is because it's finally Mewtwo, and I'm a huge Mewtwo fan. Flareon's my first, and Mewtwo is my second favorite Pokemon, and I've said that several times. I feel like Mewtwo has been shunned through most of Sword and Shield at this point, and I'm actually really excited. And actually, the cards I've seen to see a V Star, I'm hoping there's an alternate art. I think that would be an awesome alternate art if they follow the trend with the V Star alternate art theme. That Mewtwo might actually have an alternate art right away too when he gets into a set like this. So hopefully it'd be really awesome. So if that's the case, I might end up being bullish just because I'm gonna be drawn to that more than normal.
Mm.
Um,
The ETB box 100% is
oh
a
yeah,
beautiful box. Yeah, that's a very displayable box for sure. Yeah, I like the box for sure.
oh
I'm
yeah,
just hoping for more reveals, more. My one disappointment, and again, that was my own fault for having very high expectations
mm-hmm.
for it go. But I just thought it would be more of a live shot of the Pokemon in a real life setting, right? And it would be that on a card. And I kind of just did that to myself because once I saw whatever has been revealed so far hasn't been the case, I'm like, more CGI. I'm like, okay,
Yeah. I kind of felt the same way. The other part is too is so far I'm hoping that they have some way. I'm kind of disappointed in is that they have some way of tying it into Pokemon Go, the actual game. And Mason and Oak talked about that. We talked about that the one 2 weeks ago. It'd be nice if they had something almost like e-reader, maybe a QR code or something that inside of ETB you got a special Pokemon or you got a special article of clothing or something that tied the two together. Because right now, what actually ties this into being Pokemon Go, besides putting the name on, putting the logo on it, there's really no tie between the two that I've seen yet. And I'm hoping that maybe we'll see that when it gets, maybe they're still working on that dynamic of it, or they haven't released it. And, when you get the Pokemon exclusive ETB you know, from Pokemon Center, you might end up with a special QR code that fits into the Pokemon Go app. But and I'm with you. I was expecting more of the realistic, Pokemon actually out in the world and not just being this whole like they did. They just did standard Sword and Shield art into the Pokemon Go set. So those are two things that I agree with you. I was just a little bit disappointed with how they went with that.
So when Peak had myself, Mason, and Shivam on a live on IG, you were there, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, you were there. So yeah, you were
Yep.
there for the conversation about the code cards.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a very interesting conversation. I've never thought about it until it was brought up, and I said that makes perfect sense. Maybe Pokemon doesn't want to go the whole, numbered card, and sets. Maybe they don't want to touch that just yet.
Yeah.
They're successful enough that they don't need it.
No.
But if they wanted to dabble in it, wouldn't it be great to do it in code card form where it'll be redeemable online, PTCGO? It'll, for the Pokemon Go, game, especially for this set specifically. That's like a nice way to experiment with it and just see what it goes. And for a fact that there's going to be a secondary market for that. If you pooled something, the way they could do it though is that to prevent a secondary market, if they really don't want that to happen, you need to redeem the code online in order to pool the one of one, and that one of one cannot be traded.
Yeah.
Block it from being traded. So that'll be perfect.
Yeah, that person has it, and it's with them or their family. Whoever has access to the account would be able to hold that one of one.
Now that you say that, then they're just gonna have to sell the accounts.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. They're just gonna sell accounts is what you're gonna end up doing. But still, I mean that's another interesting way of looking at it. The other way that we talked about Professor Oak and I actually did this, man. When he first started his channel, he was live with me, and we were talking about serialized cards. How could Pokemon actually implement this? And actually, Oak probably had one of the better ideas for it that I've heard, is because, like he said, you don't want to put it in sets.
Yeah.
Because number one, it limits your print runs and limits your waves. Because once you get to a certain point, if someone pulls 250 of 250 of any kind of serialized card, that the chase is done. You're never going to sell that product again, so you're going to limit your amount of reselling. And when you're at a TCG, you can't limit that reselling. Number two, it would interfere with the actual TCG, which they don't want to do. You don't want to cause something that's going to make all the prices go skyrocketing a mile high and cause it so that the people can't use it for the TCG or afford to do the tournament play. So his idea was that you could do a special promo box with a sealed gold pack in the center of it. So that box would be what would have it. And they could make 10,000 of them, 100,000 of these boxes. It's like the golden ticket, the Willy Wonka golden ticket. You buy the box, you get the gold pack, you open it up, and either there's just a standard, card or a promo card in it, or you open it, 250 of them have, a secret rare Charizard or Mewtwo, or that's how you could distribute those without affecting the rest of the game.
Right, that way it's separated from the set, separated from the booster boxes, and yeah, that makes
Correct. It's in its own little product category. If people want to kill each other for that product, it's not going to affect the actual tournament players or anything like that. And I thought Professor Oak, that's a brilliant idea, and I hope that would be the best way to do that part of it for sure.
Professor Oak, you should be talking to Pokemon right now. Do you think they're having these conversations? You know what I mean? Tinfoil hat. Like, do you think these conversations are being had? I think so, right? I mean, I think so. At the very surface level, right?
They'd be smart to. Yeah. Honestly, I think that they would be very smart to be searching through these videos that people talk about serialized Pokemon and talk about these things, because there's a lot of ideas out there how you could do this without affecting the TCG. And that's my only fear is with serialized cards, and that's been my fear from the beginning, that they do serialized cards and it completely destroys the tournament play because nobody can get these sets anymore. Because then, number one, people are going to just hoard booster boxes full of these things just on the chance, and booster boxes are going to skyrocket to $1,000 a booster box right off the bat. Or they're just going to sit there and it's just going to be a chaos to try and get these until they find all of them.
Talk about your invest now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's gonna be that. Man, yeah, that would be amazing. And I think if they did add that, right, code card where it could only be redeemed, and I'm just gonna narrow it down to where it's related to the TCG.
Mm-hmm.
The only way it could be redeemed is by entering this code card online, PTCGO. At least it would draw more traffic, right, towards the website, that you would think a percentage of the flock would stay there and play it once they're there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you already made the account. Why not?
Yeah, but once they're there, and you garnered all this attention, a few are going to stay, and you just gained a percentage towards your game.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. You always got to figure that a percentage of people will always stay. They get into the game, you got to do some startup stuff and catch your first Pokemon before you can get to the load screen, and chances are, certain percentage of those people are going to get stuck on it and going to enjoy it and going to stay and play. The other thing they could do too is that you go through a TCGO account, and like you said, they not necessarily hold it, because the problem is if you do get one of these 1 of 250 cards or 1 of 100 cards, people are going to want it. I mean, if Pokemon is doing that, it's an investment purpose or a collector's purpose. They're looking at this card to be, just like baseball. It's a standout collection piece for some, and that's what they'd be looking at. So they're going to want to get that physical card out to someone.
Okay. So be very intrigued, but let's just say I was willing to spend, I don't know what the secondary market would be, a couple $100 for an account, maybe even more. Let's cap it at 500 just for the sake of argument. Say there's a 1 of 250 Charizard, 1 of 250 Mewtwo, 1 of 250 Pikachu within one set, let's just say, right? And okay, there's 3 people that are willing to sell it at 500 a piece. I mean, is someone willing to have 3 separate accounts just to have these 3 and then just show off, that they have these 3 accounts with these 3 1 of 250s? Maybe. I'm sure there'll be one for sure, but me as a collector, I want everything, consolidated into one thing. And if I can't do that, then it's not interesting enough to me.
Well, it's even like me buying from PWCC, and I know you've said it. I don't ever send anything to the vault. I want to get it home. Personally, I want to bring all my collection to one spot. I've got it. I can go and dig, go to whatever I want, and I know where it's at, and I can always sit there and pull it out and look at it. If I want to just look at it one day, just take it out and look. There's,
As we're talking about that, it's funny because when they made the announcement that hey, you got to redeem all of your packs, because if you don't, they're gone. They're gone forever once we make the transition, something along those lines. Well, I freaked out because I myself have the same problem that I do in real life. I buy something, even if it's modern, and then I can't crack it open. I have a problem that I can't crack the freaking code to just have the fun of opening. So online, I have the same problem to the point where I built up like almost 1,500 packs.
Oh no!
Going all the way back to black and whites, and I had all of these, it was a beautiful collection. And I'm so disappointed because at this point, I'm still able to access all of my packs, but I have already cracked them all open. So now I'm starting a sort of new collection, but now it's all modern. So it's like, it's not the same feeling, but I guess you got to start somewhere.
Well, I was going to say, it's the problem with the digital era. At any time, they can change the server and force you to do what they want. Yeah. Even from me playing Halo back in the day, that was always when I don't know if you were old enough to remember the old original Halo online for Halo 2, how people were actually playing until their Xbox would melt down because they shut down the Halo 2 server, and once you left, you couldn't come back in. So there's people that were on it for like 9 months just not shutting their Xbox off, and their Xboxes would eventually melt down.
I I never played Halo. I'm definitely old enough. I mean, how old do you think I am? I'm 34 years old, so
Eh,
yeah, definitely old enough. But never had Xbox. I was a PlayStation guy, and
okay.
and this one is one of those topics. You're either a PlayStation guy or an Xbox guy, right? This is a whole
It
nother
is.
hot topic, right? But yeah, I've always been a PlayStation guy from the very first one, and so I never got the chance to play Halo. But yeah, but even PlayStation had their issues where yeah, you would do something, you would go all in the game online or whatever, and then
Nope.
all of a sudden you just change it on you.
Just change it. It's all due on. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, I went from Nintendo all the way Sega Genesis into Xbox, so I never really got into PS. Like you said, it was always like that rivalry. Once you went Xbox or PS, you weren't going to the other one. It was like a big taboo for the longest time, and you were either A team or B team. You chose which one at the beginning, and that's where you were.
Exactly. The green shiz, what's going on, buddy? He says, "Go Lions." So we've got the NFC almost, the
I
entire
was gonna,
NFC here.
was gonna say, ask one of my friends in Minnesota to join. Hey, jump in, just say go Vikings.
Let's see, what's the chat saying? Talk
I was
about
gonna
it,
look.
baby.
See,
After Ivy, I'll open it for you. Yeah, it's I've really tried to dissect why in the hell, even when I made the conscious decision to buy multiple boxes, so I can open one, and then once I have it in hand, it's like I can't do this. I can't open it.
no.
I can't crack this $60 box.
See, for modern, I have no problem opening things, but definitely if I go anything older, like going all the way back into even some Sun and Moon stuff, it's like you get some of these old Flareon boxes, the original. I always say the original GX Flareon, Jolteon, Vaporeon box, but one of those, and of course you're just one of them's slightly damaged, and it's like I really just should open that. It really has no value for collecting wise, unless this box goes to like the one person I saw had a ripped PC or Chilling Rain PC had the plastic half ripped on it. Unless that thing goes to $1,000, nobody's going to be buying that box for anything more than a couple bucks. I said if it goes to 1,000, then maybe someone will pay $100 just to say they have it and their collection is damaged. But it's not going to happen. I should just go open it. But it's like I look at it several times and I go, should just do it. I can't do it. I can't open it. And you just continually put it back, and it's like okay.
Okay, awesome.
So
So I know it's just not me because very often do I see in the chat as as we're watching lives, maybe obviously the modern conversation is being talked about, and often the consensus in the chat is, oh yeah, I bought it, for long term, and 2 weeks later it's ripped, and I was
oh
like,
yeah,
man, I wish I had it. Man, I wish I had that problem.
I know. That's where I always think about too with investing. How many people can keep things sealed? Because I see so many people say that they're in it for the long term investment. Even on my channel, I bought all this for a long term investment. 2 weeks later, they'll be showing pictures. I'll have these people like on Instagram, and they'll be showing pictures of stuff out of Evolving Skies because they bought it for the long haul, and all of a sudden they're just opening boxes. It's like that is the hardest trick is, and even I like opening modern. So like I've said, I like to take it out of the house or put it far away from me because if it's in reach, my tendency is that I want to open it to find out. Like this Pikachu V box is killing me right now because I just pulled a Charizard out of a Pikachu V box that my brother and I bought, and now it's just like, there could be one sitting right there in that V box, just ready to go.
It's right there, man. Just reach over, let's crack it open live right now.
Twice I've had it in my hand, going, I really want to open. Nope,
I'll
nope,
live
nope.
vicariously through you.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Nope, no, I'm not.
Yeah, the last modern set that I was able to open was Celebrations because well it was plentiful, right? And Celebrations is
Oh
just
yeah.
one of those cool sets that you just have to open.
Mhm.
I did the same for the 20th anniversary, so I bought quite a few of those. Opened around 120 packs. Pissed off because I didn't get a single Charizard,
Nope.
but I got like three Blastoise, four Venusaurs. So I'm like, come on, not one not one Charizard. Got me the Mega Rayquaza, the Reshiram and Zekrom, quite a few more from that top tier, but Not a
Hmm.
freaking Zard. Not one.
I still have not gotten a Zard, and I always say I've had a Charizard curse since 2019, and I've given away more Charizards in channel giveaways, and I finally pulled my first VMAX, which was the Shining Fates one the other day. But otherwise, even Professor Oak, he jumped in one to get my giveaway to try and get the 500, and he won the ETB. I did a Celebrations ETB giveaway, and I literally sat there. I had like 5 of them down in the basement. I'm going, which one am I gonna add? Then I just grabbed one and threw it in the ship it. And he opens in his channel, and when he first started channel, he pulls a Charizard. I opened the other three. I've opened 3 of the other ones. Nope. I got Blastoises and Venusaurs. I've pretty much completed the whole set. I am missing the shiny Gyarados and the Charizard right now. Otherwise, I've pulled everything else, and it's to the point where I'm just like, I'm gonna just end up buying them. I ain't gonna have a choice.
Yeah, it's so when the 25th anniversary came out, I held and held and held off until I was able to find some in my local, Target. Finally, I found it, and it was just completely stocked. I mean, I just walked
Oh
in
yeah.
probably when the guy had just walked off, and there was no one there to even care, right? So I thought, all right, well, I'm gonna need my 2 for my PC because I have 2 of the 20th, and I'm not OCD, but I'm also not the alternative. So I've got to have the matching 2 to match the 20th anniversary. And then I
Yep.
bought myself 3 extra so that I can open along with other of the other products, and it was a fun time. It was a fun time. I'm not gonna deny it, right? Even though it was very repetitive after like the first 40 packs.
How many of
but
the regular set could you pull?
right.
Got a
But
stack this tall of just hollows right now.
yeah, it was very fun. Then the next, the earlier set that I opened before that I went deep was back in 2016.
Mhm.
XY Evolutions. I bought 3 boxes of those, opened every single one up, and then right after that, it was Sun and Moon base. I opened 2 boxes of that, and 5 boxes within a couple months. Maybe even a shorter time. Yeah, that was the most amazing time that I can remember me being in modern. But for some reason today, even modern today, I don't know, maybe I have an investing mindset that I'm just not ready to admit. But
I was gonna say you're a closet investor. You just won't admit it. Someday we'll get you out of the closet on the investing side. You can let the world know.
did you by any chance check out Jake's live today?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there for the first. Like I said, I was there for about the first 50 minutes. Then I had the boogie. We had dinner, so I had to take off at that point.
So I'm not going to
But
get deep into that whole conversation, but just something that hit me right now,
mhm.
uh, that I thought about only in like the past week, and I finally mentioned it, like it typed it in the chat. And the whole idea, which I've made myself, the whole argument of, well, vintage took X amount of years, 15 years, what have you, to go up in value. Why is modern almost matched with some of the vintage products, right?
Mhm.
If base sets set around for $600 for a decade and plus, right? So for about a week, after hearing so much conversation about this, it finally hit me, trying to rationalize it. I said, well, who are the people that care about vintage? Us, right?
Us,
The
yeah.
90s kids, the 90s
Mhm.
kids. Well, in order for us to be able to afford that $600 box, we first needed to grow up, get money, get
Yep.
jobs, right? Get
Uh
money,
huh.
and then build up the nostalgia factor, and
Uh
then
huh.
we were able to dive in. And in a sense, I guess the word that I would use, secretly, because no one was sharing this information. Hey, I'm getting into Pokemon. We just kind of did it closeted, right?
Everybody did, yeah,
It-
on the side.
right. Everyone did, but no one knew that we were all doing it together. But it took the fact that we needed to grow up, get the money, and then buy these items,
Hmm.
not knowing that it was going to go up. I'm pretty sure there was a percentage out there that that was those unicorns, but it took those factors in order for us to buy the items. Then eventually, other things in the world happened, or within the hobby, I should say, whether it was Pokemon Go, which
Hmm.
that was another catapult for the hobby.
Yep.
things like that that drew more attention into the hobby. And then going even further with the Logan Paul thing and whatnot. But regardless, my justification or my rationalization during that point made me realize, I'm like, I guess I'm not completely against the whole modern thing, because at least now even the 90 kids are still here, on top
Yep.
of the next generation
Hmm.
still here. So going down the line, there's going to be another generation that's going to be adding to the
Hmm.
population. Then what happens to these modern products when you have X population growing? All of that to
Yeah.
say is like, maybe I'm not going to say I'm going to do a full 180, but maybe I'm turning a few degrees. I'm making a few degrees turn,
Yeah.
to rationalizing why this might be the case.
And see, that's been my rationalization for quite a long time. Is you sit there and look at it, and even some of the things that I look at when I'm holding for long term that I feel are going to do extremely well in the future, I don't necessarily look at it as like some of these collectors that have already got big hobby or big collections and things like that. So Jake, PK, all these guys don't really care about modern as much. I know that they're buying stuff and I know that they're in it, but realistically, they have huge collections in vintage. They're chasing Skyridge, they're chasing base sets, Shadowless, and all these other cards, and that's fine. And I love those cards. I would honestly love to do more with those. I would love to see, you know, myself get more of those cards. But realistically, it's really difficult. So even like PWCC, if I can find it, I purchased one of these the other day and had it delivered here just because this is one of the cards I used to have because I like Flareon, and going all the way back to first edition. Yeah, it's a 7. It's what I can afford, so why not? And that's just it. You sit there and you look at those items, and that's what I can afford. But the other thing I look at it is goes now we've gone multi generational really in Pokemon. The original kids of Pokemon, such as myself, such as you, such as a lot of these people now, their kids are in it with them. We brought our kids back into this. And yes, they may do like we did, where they leave. There's expenses, there's life expenses, things like that, of course. But what percentage of those kids are going to come back to the hobby when they get into their mid 20s? And like you said, people talk about there being so much production on product right now, and I agree. There's a ton of product out there. There's a ton of stuff. And a lot of this modern stuff might take a long time before we actually see, good growth on it. I don't expect growth in the first 4 or 5 years. Some of these may just sit flat. Evolving Skies might hit $180 to $190, kind of like we're seeing now, and it'll just flatline. It won't go any further for quite a long time. But as they do, and as our kids come back into it, my son's going to go. Vivid Voltage is my perfect example of it. My son loves that Rainbow Pikachu. If we don't pull that Rainbow Pikachu in 15 years when he gets old enough, what's he going to try and do? He's going to try and get that Rainbow Pikachu somehow. And that's where these people might start to buy these booster boxes at a heavier price, just like we're seeing with base set now. People started buying base set boxes or Neo boxes or EX series boxes because they were chasing their nostalgia. They were chasing those gold cards that they maybe didn't get as a kid, or maybe that they had and they want them back. And these things are all things that you need to calculate when you're actually looking at long-term investment in any kind of TCG. It really depends on how much exponential growth are we going to have now where we're at now from where we were 20 years ago. People coming back into this hobby and start chasing their old childhoods, and that's where it's really going to be the hard part to really know for sure. I would never say anything's going to go to the moon, but will we see probably another spike in 15 years, 10, 15 years of product? Probably. I wouldn't be surprised in 10, 15 years if we saw modern, what we consider modern now, starting to move fast upwards.
Yeah. And when we're looking at kind of how our trajectory worked,
Mm-hmm.
right? The 90s kids to the
Yep.
point where, oh, it's so hyped now, right? And then you mentioned, your kids, my kids. Your youngest is 4 years old, all the way to our oldest would be 10 and everything in
Mm-hmm.
between. That means that it would take 20 to 25 years for them to start making some money to some
Yep.
semi-serious money,
Yep.
depending on what they're doing, obviously. And then you would have to like go another 5 years to 30 years in order for them to start making maybe some serious money.
Yep.
That's a very long time, right? Kind of like how it took for
Yep.
us, right, to get to that
It
point.
is.
So there might be a dead period or two in the hobby again,
Yeah.
right? That's not, it's right. Everything works in cycles, right? That whole theory,
Mm-hmm.
everything works in cycles. So if that's the case, think about the age of our kids. And if the theory is that our kids are going to adopt Pokemon just like we did because we're introducing it to them, or even if that's not the case with other parents, but the kids themselves are going to be introduced to Pokemon just because, friends, TV, anime, what have you, games, it's going to take for them, 20 to 30 years to get to the point where they're going to want to really buy into the Pokemon, get what they were interested in when they were a kid. That's a very long time. That smells like a few dead spots in the hobby,
Oh, yeah.
and
But the thing is that if you follow, a lot of people like to follow sports cards even. If you watch the exponential growth of sports cards all the way from the 1920s, the early years, if you actually talk to people that were collecting even back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it runs cycles. So what happens is like you said, as a hobby starts, or a TCG or sports cards or anything happens, there's that cycle where there's a start, kind of a dead, and then it kind of picks up again. But the next time it happens, it gets smaller because more people along the way had joined in on that curve, and so the curve gets smaller the next time that you see the jump, and then more people fill in, and then the next time it gets smaller. So yeah, the first time might have been 20 to 25 years before we saw that. The next time might be 15 years before we see it. The
for sure.
following trend might be getting down to 10 because there's so many more people, and we don't all have kids at the same time. Your kids
Yeah.
are 10 to 12, mine are 2 to 7 in that range. So there's a lot of area right there where kids are joining this hobby now with us, and they're going to join in sooner or at different points along the chart, and that's going to cause that up and down movement to really scrunch up to where we
and
see
it,
sports cards now. You don't
right.
have that use. We have pretty solid growth or movement.
And I have not been around the sports market. You
Mm-hmm.
obviously have knowledge on that.
Yep.
So that's already beneficial. That's an advantage that you have that part of the history, because you just gave me a little schooling on that
Mm-hmm.
aspect, which made me now say, you know what, you're right. It wouldn't take 20 to 30 years. It would take probably less than 20 years.
Yep.
And so if that's the case, still, I do believe that there's going to be, a dead zone
Oh yeah.
somewhere within there, right? Dead zone, because a dead zone could still be a lot higher than what we witnessed.
Correct.
But yeah, now that you have garnered all of this attention, and it's growing exponentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the effect of a dead era. It's going to be less and less as you progress
Yeah.
in the years, you progress in the hobby or the IP, what have you.
And it all depends on the IP too, being able to keep people engaged. So, like I said, a lot of times in videos and lives, I say when you talk about how you're looking at investments, it really depends on Pokemon at this point in time, because even sports cards have screwed it up when you hear them talk about the wax errors and things like that, where there was just dead. There's people still don't collect those cards. They're so bad. And
Yeah.
Pokemon as an IP could also do that. They could create another dead zone by doing poor sets, poor layouts, poor tournament play, poor, they could do a lot of things that could cause these issues to also happen, to cause more dead space to happen. So there's a lot of variables when it goes down to it at the end of the day. But, it really does come down to Pokemon has to continue to make a good product. They have to make a playable product, and they have to make a product that's appealing to both the player and the collector, and people that are going to want to have these items.
Yeah.
So as long as Pokemon can keep it together, they can also detonate you also. So if they continue to make good sets, let's say we continue, like, honestly, the Sword and Shield era really does have some really good sets right now going. There's a couple holy ones that are not so tough, but I mean, realistically, if you look at the sets in Sword and Shield, they do really well. So what's going to happen is that as long as they continue that trend, that dip might be less. There'll be a dip. There's going to be a dip no matter what you do. It's just a matter of how deep it goes before it starts to come back up again.
Oh, I think I lost you there for a second. You came back though.
Yeah.
It was for like 3 seconds at the end there. Yeah, I think it's interesting. So you're talking about, the IP. Can Pokemon themselves, have enough to, keep it going, to keep the
Mhm.
train going? And the one angle that I keep thinking about is, well, we also have to consider that Pokemon is not only going against themselves, but they're also going against technology now.
Yeah.
The one my theory is, that, when we were kids, we had very little to distract us.
Hmm.
So when Pokemon came around, it was an explosion. I mean, there was
Yep.
nothing that really had that effect on us kids until Pokemon came around. Today, especially when I'm looking at my kids, sure, if I bring around packs, they're going to want to open them. If I never bring packs around, if I never mention it again, they might never mention it themselves because they're not that interested. They like it, they're if I have packs, they want to open it all, but they themselves are not so interested in it that they're calling for it, they're begging for it every week like we did.
Hmm.
And so as time goes by and technology progresses and social media and all the negative stuff that happens in social media and how that changes the psychology in us, whether we're adults, especially the kids, how and here I'm going to get a little negative, a little pessimistic for further generations down the road, including my kids. They might get a little bit more vain, they might get a little bit more materialistic, where collectibles and Pokemon is just not going to be it, right? So can Pokemon keep up with that trend and come up with new ideas to keep up with,
Yeah.
to be able to distract, to be able to keep that
Yeah. And
momentum
that's a
going?
that's a difficult thing. One of the things that I always sit there and I look at, even Magic itself, is another example of how the online game to me has taken away a lot of the luster away from the actual playable, the cards themselves. So when Magic the Gathering Online came out, we really started to see kind of Magic flatline and not much growth. There's a couple sets that there still always is. There's something that draws collectors, or there's something that draws people into it, and there's kind of a bump and then it kind of goes again. But realistically, if you look at Pokemon, you can sit there and say COVID and all this stuff happened and caused Pokemon to go up, but it was actually starting out back in 2019. Things were already starting to go up. And if you look at it, if that was fact that COVID was a really big catalyst for Pokemon, why wasn't it a huge catalyst for Magic or for Yu-Gi-Oh or for a lot of those? Pokemon did something else, and I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't know if it was because, well, Logan Paul helped. I mean, we do know that he brought in a huge, massive amount of people, but something had already taken Pokemon and started to shift it up. And I don't know if it was the end sets of Sun and Moon with that tag team era that did it, or if it was something else. I just can't quite pin it down, and I don't know if you've got an idea what might be doing that or started
So
it.
in the spirit of narratives, right? As just in today's live, in the spirit of narratives, the, so 100%, right? COVID happened first, right? Let's call that, and you're right, 100%. It was already going up in price.
Yeah, it was starting to move.
I've been buying since 2012, so, and really never sold up until after kind of the peak, just on the start of the way down. That's when I started to sell off a little bit. The only things I sold at the peak were my binders,
Hmm.
binder cards that I just had as a kid, and I just didn't care for them. But yeah, so what what I found was that with the combination of prices already going up, so that means that naturally there was a group of people that were driven to Pokemon, right?
Hmm.
Once they got to a certain age, they were able to have maybe, more money in their pockets, more dispensable, income. Therefore, with nostalgia, their natural drive came to Pokemon. They got in it. Well, what happened with COVID? Everyone's stuck at home now.
Yep.
So now there's a little bit of tension garnering, but now there's a percentage of people that probably would have never found Pokemon if they weren't stuck at home,
Yeah.
if they weren't stuck at home on their computer and watching YouTube and watching
Hmm.
content and what have you. So now those people that would have never found Pokemon, again, it's just a theory, now have it. Now it's there. Now they're getting that nostalgic kick, and now they want to, or now they want to get their fix. So they're buying. They're buying as well. So there's this momentum building up, on top of the
Hmm.
momentum that was already, built up from,
Yeah.
late 2018 and 2019. Um, so you progress through the summer and just doing this gradual little climb. Logan Paul happens to come in because
And
there was a
sent it.
bigger explosion actually in sports. And if anyone follows, Logan Paul got in it through Gary Vee because
Hmm.
of sports, and sports was already big. It was already climbing. It was already going up.
Yeah.
So Gary Vee was the one that influenced Logan Paul to get into Pokemon. Logan Paul got, obviously win, got excited, dove in. And once he dove in, he captured a much bigger,
Yeah.
population that again, without Logan Paul, these people would have never,
No.
re-encountered Pokemon again. So now there's another wave of people that
Hmm.
are just piling on. And I think that's just everything was just the way I just kind of define it, I guess, it's people would have never found Pokemon, rediscovered Pokemon if it wasn't for these things. And of course, let's just throw it in there, the free money, right? All the
Yeah.
free money that people were getting. Well, hey, there's this game that I used to love as a kid, and I love as a kid, and I wish I could buy some. Oh, thank you, Uncle Sam. I'm getting this free money that I would
Yeah.
never have to pay back.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, you will eventually. It's just a matter of how they take it from you. But yeah, I mean, and I that's just it. I mean, I think right now, if you actually look at current sets and where things are going, to me, it feels like we've almost fallen back in. And I've kind of done a little graphing and things like that, trying to see. It almost looks like we fell back into the trend that was occurring before Logan Paul. A lot of the stuff seems like it's selling and going comparable to what it was in the early 2020, beginning of 2020, mid 2020. People were starting to buy more things and there was more movement in Pokemon before Logan Paul. Like you said, Logan Paul was just like someone strapped rockets to it and sent it straight up to the atmosphere, and it's kind of just crumbled back down since. But the trough seems to have fallen right back into that nice gradual curve. Then there's this big blip, and then it kind of fell back into it. So now, you know, actually looking at it, it looks like we're actually sitting back to where we were prior to the Logan Paul stuff. The question is as people, as this year continues and as things keep going, are we going to continue to see more retraction in this market, or have we kind of settled into where we're going to be, unless now we got other things happening in the economy that could cause some issues coming up? That it's kind of been the one topic that I don't hear very many people talking about because they're stuck on Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. But there's some major things happening in the economy that people just aren't seeing, like interest rates going up 0.5%. That's going to take a huge chunk out of people in their homes that are not on fixed rate mortgages. Variable rate mortgages now are going to start to move.
It's
New,
already more than doubled in the past
yeah,
since at the lowest point to now. It's more than doubled. So yeah,
correct. Yep. And I
yeah,
mean, you go for vehicles, any kind of normal expenses in your home. Now you're going to have more expenses there. Plus,
yeah,
like I did on one video, talk about inflation. Something people aren't also looking at is your cost of living inside your home is going up.
right,
So how
yeah,
much downward impact is that going to have on this hobby here soon? It's
right.
we're going to see some kind of influence here. It hasn't seemed to have really affected much yet. To me, it's just a matter of how long until we do see more of this downward pressure coming.
And I'm never one to like willingly talk about it, but again, in talking about investing, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
That's when you get into when you're looking at possible recessions, when you're looking at these worst case scenarios in the markets, people losing money, retirement funds and whatnot, stocks, inflation. Um, who are the people that are being affected the most? Who are the people that are being affected the least? Right? I mean, the people that are buying, the trophy cards and the high end items are typically not going to be the ones that are going to get hurt. Those are going to be the guys that, at the very minimum, are going to be able to hold, right, and just sit tight. You have the middle, then section that they might do a little of both. They might be able to be willing to part ways with some things, maybe be able to keep something, hold on some things. And then you have the bottom that's, it's just you have to sell it, right? Because these things
Yeah.
are just not, these are luxury goods, and
Hmm.
we need to get rid of it. We need to pay bills. We need to, put food on the table, things like that. And so it's that type of dynamic. And obviously the greater percentage is always going to be the bottom.
Yep.
And so how much of that pressure, like you mentioned, is going to spike. So in general, yeah, when you're looking at investing, right, in these items, even vintage, well, you want to make sure you're investing in the correct items in
Yep.
vintage, because not all vintage is made the same, not
Hmm.
all modern is made the same.
Yep.
And so, yeah, you don't want to invest into unlimited, which is
Yep.
why I traded away my unlimited, master sets. Um, but you know, going into some of these first editions, but even all of the first editions are not made the same. You now you have to look at, pops of a certain card, certain grades, um, natural attrition versus, the quality of a card, and all of those things. All of
Yep.
those things take a factor. So, yeah, it is very interesting as we move forward, how much does the market conversation affect the Pokemon. And I'm always one of those people that psychologically, if everyone gets on this train of content where recession and, doom and
Yeah.
gloom, and, this is gonna naturally, the viewer is going to say, dump it all,
Yeah.
dump it
I'm
all.
out. And I don't like putting it all out there, but the biggest thing is that, do I think that you could still invest and be responsible? Of course. You could spend money and collect and be responsible too. The biggest thing is even during the boom of back in 2021, people were spending money on credit cards. They were spending money that they didn't have. And the biggest thing is like I preach, I know a lot of my viewers have said, I wish you'd stop saying budget. But I really do preach budgeting. I running a business, running a business, a couple of businesses, you really do watch your budgets, especially when your economy's looking like this, because it's not the big things that bite you. It's not the big expenses that get you in trouble. It's all those little ones, like your grocery bill going up 25%. You don't realize it. Your day to day, your fuel prices going up. Pretty soon, postal services go up. Shipping comes up from, your Amazon pricings all go up. These are all things that can really affect. And that if you are going to be doing still purchasing collectibles, purchasing investments, working on these kind of things and doing it, number one, don't go with the shotgun approach, which a lot of people I always call were doing before, buying everything under the sun, putting it away, and hoping that two or three of them hit the target. You got to become better. You have to become more into pinpointing what the market does, who wants this product, who's going to be your end user of this item. And this is mainly my business side talking. Who am I selling this to? 10 years down the road, is someone going to want a booster box, or are they going to want an ETB, or are they going to want this theme deck? And really cater to that thought process and only spend what you have available. Don't be overspending and pulling credit cards out to try and buy something. Build accounts, be smart, and definitely even a collectible or an investment. Don't overreach and don't make that way. You don't have to be forced into that position to sell things for losses. You don't have to sell your collection pieces because you overspent and you have to pay that bill. That's the biggest key that I at least try to preach quite a bit is that you get people ask you, how many of these ETBs should I buy? I That's up to you. I won't give you a number. I never will. It all depends. I
It's
don't know
just
your
from person to
financials.
person.
I can't tell you how
Exactly.
much you got. So it's up to you. I mean, it's what you don't overspend. If you buy it, don't overspend. Make sure you stay in a budget.
So if people are telling you, hey, stop talking about, budgeting, and things like that, the thing that pops in my mind is age demographic. Who's saying these things? Who's the one that's
Yeah,
questioning you preaching, budgeting? Because to me, I would assume a complete 100% assumption that it's a younger crowd,
it might be.
because when I was younger, I was not thinking about
No.
budgeting. I was not as financially literate as I am today. And so, therefore, the one thing I know today that I wish I would have known now is budget. And maybe a few guys here in the chat know, but one of the people that I found on YouTube very early on, I would say about my mid 20s, 24 years old, I think is when I remember, it was right when I was starting to buy a house. Um, 23 years old, Dave Ramsey.
Oh,
Dave
yeah.
Ramsey is
Mm-hmm.
preaching, make every dollar count and
Yep.
budgeting and making sure that every dollar has a purpose, and then his criteria, and then his path to get into financial freedom, and
Yep.
all of these things. I mean, it's very important. So when someone questions you or tells you, hey, stop talking about budgeting,
Mm-hmm.
lends me to believe that it's a younger crowd and not an older crowd.
Yeah. And I don't say it. They tell me not to talk about budgeting. They just kind of sit there and go, oh, budgeting again. You always get them comments like, why are you bringing up budget again? You just did this. Because a lot of times I like to bring them up once a month. Especially now. Before it was like once every 3 months. Even we used to do quarterly budgets where you'd sit there and make sure everything's on track, make sure your budgets are good, make sure you're not eating into your bottom line. And now it's like every 2 weeks we're sitting down and re-budgeting things, making sure everything's right. And it's just because things change so fast right now with what's going on in the economy and what's happening. You can't go by 1 month even hardly any longer and know that things haven't changed that much. And like I said, my demographic typically on my channel is right between that 25 and 35 range. I think I have like 2% down to 20, and I don't have anybody under 20 in my demographic. At least it doesn't show on my YouTube.
Yeah.
So my
And,
demographic
and,
is like you said, it's
and
kind
I
of.
know Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, yeah, my demographic is definitely could be that mid 20 range demographic. That's really, like you said, you're not thinking budgets as long as your checking account is positive, and you can know you're working tomorrow and I'm getting a paycheck for this, then yeah, I'm good. I can go out and drink
Right.
beer tonight. That's not a problem.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was just going to mention, when you mentioned your demographic, right? A person that kind of, is, introspective, and, thinks about, when I was 15, when I was 20, 25, 30. There's a big difference between the 25-year-old, and I hate to, generalize, but there's a big difference between the mentality of a 25-year-old and a 35-year-old. A
Well.
decade will give you a ton of knowledge, a ton of
Mm-hmm.
life experience,
Mm-hmm.
enough, and for the most part, to gain you some experience points between 25 and 35. And there's
Yep.
a big difference, there. So like today, I'm still buying today,
Mm-hmm.
but it's I'm very selective. It's got to be very unique items. It's not,
Yep.
I'm not buying, I'm not even buying set cards. And really, I've never been a set card other than when I first started in the hobby, which was, a decade ago. It's just very unique items. But the way I buy is only through dispensable, income. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
it's not, I'm not dipping into the honey pot. I'm not buying Pokemon versus investing. I'm not doing, it's priorities first, and then I got to make sure I'm comfortable.
Yep.
And then if there's some left over,
It
I'll
goes
go
here.
ahead and and dip.
Yep.
And the way I've always explained, and I explained this with Oldie, shout out to him on his podcast. When I buy an item, because I do zero investing, this is just me, and I'm not saying you shouldn't invest, but I just don't invest in Pokemon. Every dollar that I spend into Pokemon, I consider it down the drain. It's in the
It's
toilet. I
gone.
lost it.
Yep.
I lost it. I do think of the monetary value during the process of it, considering buying it or not buying it, up until I buy it now, or PWCC or what have you.
Yep.
Once I have it in my hand, that monetary value is gone. I don't see the
Yep.
monetary value, because to me, in my eyes, really genuinely, it's at zero.
Mm-hmm.
It's at zero now. And I think that is the best way to go about the hobby if you're going to put money into it. Investing, again, that's not really my realm, but I will probably go about it the same way.
Yep.
Never put a dollar into any investment that you're not willing to lose at the end of the day.
And
If
and
it's going to hurt you tomorrow, yeah, don't do it.
that's exactly what I say. You can sit here and invest it's your money. If you want to spend it, you can spend it where you want. But just have in your head that the second you take that out of your checking account and you go buy a booster box of Pokemon, Magic, MetaZoo, whatever you're going to go for, you know that when that box gets here, you have nothing. That box is worth nothing. And yeah, I track, just because personally I track everything, but I track the value of that box when I purchase it. I track what it's going to cost to sell it at some point. But in general, as long as it's in this house, it's money lost. If it's not there, there's no monetary value to it whatsoever. To me, it's a rock. It's just sitting there until I actually make a move with it. And I just know that I'm not going to be able to get that income out anytime soon. It's not, never rush it and just be patient with it. And like, once again, you know, invest in other things first too, guys. I mean, investing in a TCG is actually probably should be one of your last things you do. We invest a lot into the business, into our farm. We invest into your standard forms, and then you go for the expenditures on here. And that's the biggest thing that that people need to really realize is that this is like a third option. This is if you got some extra money and you feel like taking a risk and seeing where things go, then you come here. And if you keep that in mind, there's really no, you're not going to lose if you just keep that in mind moving around.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So,
I don't know if we've been neglecting the chat or not,
eh,
but I, I don't know if the chat, because I know I can keep on going, I can keep on ranting, and
oh yeah.
but I don't want to neglect them either.
No, we can go ahead and take a look back and see if anybody's got any questions. Throw them up there. We'll let's definitely catch them real quick. Yeah, exactly. If you want money now, just buy stocks. At least you can sell those in less than a day. You can have your money. Crypto, I mean, you can flip crypto and same exact instantaneous. So if you're looking at taking investments where you need money back right away, definitely look at those.
Would you be doing that today?
What's that?
Buying stocks today?
I wouldn't be buying stocks today. I'm just saying if you're looking at trying to get money out, don't be buying Pokemon to try and have liquid asset. It's just
Yeah.
not going to happen. You're going to want to be in something that's you can transfer instantly back and forth if you're looking to keep it liquid. So stocks, crypto, those kind of things. Right now, yeah, stock market's looking a bit on the
Yeah, everything's already down at least what 10 to 15.
yeah
Generally, maybe some things are doing better than that, but yeah, generally 10 to 15% already, and yeah, it's
last week. Yeah, she's been pretty rough.
the conversation about recession. And again, psychologically, when there's so much content out there away from the hobby, away from Pokemon, there's so much content out there about a possible recession in the news and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Markets are driven by emotion.
There.
So if someone's out there is thinking I should pull out now while I'm still here before it drops down to here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially like, people that are like ready to retire and things like that. Like people that are ready to retire, they probably already learned from the past couple of decades, what happens when there's a recession, what happens when there's an extreme dip in the market. So if those people that are around the age of getting ready to retire, even within 5 years, they're probably thinking, I should pull out right now. Because in
Yeah.
order for me to gain that loss in five
Mm-hmm.
years, it's probably not going to happen. Once that happens, it's just going to create a domino effect.
Oh yeah, and it does. I mean, that's why even a lot of times, even in stock markets per se, they have shutdowns. They don't want that domino. They want to give people a chance for that domino effect to stop. Just because they want to prevent huge catastrophic losses like Black Friday and stuff from Black Tuesday from way back in the 1920s, 1929 market crashes. Because once it happened, like you said, it was someone saw someone sell a massive amount of stock and everybody started doing it. And before it was done, everybody was broke because they had just driven the market into the ground. And if you give time people really a time to think about things, it gives them an opportunity to say, well, wait. Maybe I should be smart about this and maybe look at moving it or moving, like my 401k. Maybe it's time to take it from an aggressive stance to a conservative stance or, a lower growth pattern, but safer investments. And it doesn't get it out of the market. It may readjust it, but it kind of slows that drop. And yeah, I'm just looking at the chat here. Felipe put it in there. We're not comparing Pokemon to the stock market. I'm just being clear on this right now. We're just talking about two different forms of investment. Um, Pokemon has nothing to do with the stock market, and I
Yeah.
actually hate that comparison. When anybody says Pokemon's like a stock market, you're absolutely insane because then you have no idea what you're talking about if you're saying that.
Part of today's conversation was, treating Pokemon like it'll, beat the S&P 500, which a lot of the
No.
arguments from a few parties and valid arguments were, hey, it kind of does. Pokemon can beat the S&P 500, but then you have to be very selective, look at different time frames, and if you look at specific time frames you can, but if you look at other specific time frames you won't. And so it's very dangerous when you compare it to the stock market. The only reason
Hmm.
why I bring it up is because the stock markets in general, the possible recessions, things like that, will have an
Hmm.
effect on holding luxury goods, which Pokemon is a luxury good.
Yeah.
So a possible recession, dips in markets, major dips in markets, will have an effect in the hobby.
Oh yeah. And I was kind of hoping that Jake would bring that up because I was kind of curious where he was going to take it. Because Sunday I was going to do a video, and I'm usually I do a video on Sunday. And I might be moving it. I want to do a live with it, but Jake, I've been working with him and I've been sending him my information because I've had a little pet project that I've been working on for probably been about a 3-4 month project now that I've been running. Some things that always irked me even back in 2021 when people say that the Pokemon always does better than the S&P 500. They like pulling that out. They like pulling this information out saying that it's better than the stock market or better than this. Well, so I started going back and doing historical records on a lot of the. I've got three. I had a lot of them done, and then consulting with Jake a little bit and talking to him, I had to change the formula. He suggested things added and things kind of put in there to show dividends weren't included in my original one. So we had dividends added, all the other things that you get as benefits from the stock market, costs of selling the item, transferring and things like that are all part of it. So we added them all in. And it, you think Pokemon's beat the stock markets in the last 10 years? It has not. And I have records that show that it has not, except for 2020, to October 2020, it did. And actually, what we're seeing, it's going to change now. But as of January 1st of 2022, they were actually converging again. The stock
And
markets were actually coming back to take their place above it again with everything that was
and
happening.
again, they mentioned it, so I'm just kind of repeating what they're saying, but
Mm-hmm.
for
No.
rational people, it's just very obvious, what they're saying. And
Yeah.
this one specifically, it squeaks. If you select a very specific, narrow,
Yep.
selective data, then sure, Pokemon
Yeah.
can definitely, beat the S&P 500. But when you broaden it out, which
Mm-hmm.
in stocks and investing, that's what you should do. You should
No.
never invest into something because of a very narrow window.
No.
You're
No.
looking at the entire picture. You're looking at the entire history. And so nothing ever works like that in terms of investing. So why would it be that case here? From the entire history of Pokemon, and again, you're the one that does it, that has actually done the work, the data. I haven't, but
Yeah.
my gut feeling says no, it hasn't. But without having
No.
that data in front of me,
And like I said, it's taken. I went all the way back to base set black and white, and actually those sets are the hardest ones to find data because the Amazon records and eBay records are really the only thing that I can get for those. As you get closer into like the 2019 like XY late XY sets, you had TCG Player, Toad and Troll, all of these other companies come in, so there's more data points available at that point to be able to see the trends that were happening. So, but I know a lot of people when they see data are going to, of course, have arguments and stuff with it, and they're always going to say, you know, well, you didn't pick the lowest price or you didn't pick the highest price or something. So I just looked at min max. If you had bought it at MSRP, the box, and then the lowest sale point at the same time period, because you got to have a starting point for the markets. Whatever date you put it in the markets, you have to be pretty consistent on that point. And then just ran the data because there's enough calculators and enough information out there on the markets. You can see everything that's happened in the stock market in the last 10 years, day by day, and putting them against each other. Yes, if you had bought something prior to 2020, October of 2020, you would not have beat the stock market. Anything that
no.
never. And I could not find out of the 8 sets I had originally, not one of them beat even the S&P. The NASDAQ killed them. I mean, the NASDAQ is the one that if you were trying to do anything, the NASDAQ killed all of them. And then you go down to it and you look at it and go, once it hit October of 20, so if I go from to January 1st of 2020 or 2021, all the Pokemon products shot right past the stock market. So yes, if you had bought something before October 1st of 2020, right in that range, yeah, you beat the stock market, right? Yes, you're absolutely right. Your product would be beating the stock market right now. But if you had bought and sold anywhere in the 10 years prior to that, if you bought black and white base set in the 10 years prior to that, except for that date, you would have not beaten the stock market.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's yeah, when I think about that time frame, it always gives me this nasty feel in the pit of my stomach because oh man, the people that were buying, PSA nines at $5,000, Zards, unlimited,
Yeah.
looking at what their prices today, what is it, 900 to 1100 maybe,
You're right in that
or
range.
somewhere in
Yeah.
there.
Somewhere right
Um,
there.
yeah. So now versus the S&P 500, where it's been, I mean, honestly, it's probably very comparable.
Hmm.
But no, probably not because again, if you overall in general, you're looking at probably a 10 to 20% drop in markets, right? The general picture.
Yeah.
That $5,000 card went down to 1,000.
Yeah.
That's not 10 to 20%.
No, that's a heck of a lot more. I mean, even right now, you even look at black and white base set or even evolutions. I mean, you went from 1,400. There was some sales for $1,400 pretty consistently during 2021,
Oh, that's
and
Evo.
Evo, yeah, they were
Okay.
12 to 1,400. There was quite a few sales in that range even on it, and
I've been
it's
using
now.
1,200, so I never saw 1,400. So
Oh yeah,
that's
there's
interesting.
actually some couple sales even on the history of 1,400. I didn't use that number because it was only like 4 or 5 sales at that point. But still, some people bought that at $1,400 for a box of Evo, and it's dropped down to 600, and it's kind of rebounded. I think now they're sitting at about 750, 800 is where I've been seeing recently. But still, if you consider that, that's a 25% drop, even from 1,200 to 800. You're a 28% drop right there in the price. The markets haven't even dropped that much yet, and
Not even.
it's no. I mean, granted, by the time this is said and done, the way it's looking, we might be there, but we'll see. Hopefully, we don't go that far because what 20%'s a depression technically.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's either six
That's
quarters of negative GDP or a
by
20%
right?
loss in stock market is considered a depression.
Yeah. So Andrew Lopez, I just noticed this comment.
Mm-hmm.
This is an interesting comment. I do think it's interesting. So let's just dive a little deeper.
Okay.
And again, I am no expert in any of this. Uh, so he says the fundamentals. When you look at your investments and how to get your fundamentals based on those investments, it's not much different than speculating in stock markets, guessing and some speculation. So stock markets, stocks, investing into companies, right? Do
Mm-hmm.
you view it the same way? Is it comparable when you're looking at whatever you think the best investable item in Pokemon is today versus investing in a stock like Tesla, a company like Tesla, Apple, what have you? Is it that comparable when you look at the fundamentals of the two, or is it just, or do you feel like one really does give you more because it's producing, it's giving more value to society versus one, it's really at the end of the day a luxury. At least
Yeah.
that's the way I would evaluate it. Well, what do you think about that? Do you think they're comparable?
The one thing that I have that I would say that they're not comparable in that point is that in a stock market, any product that's in a stock market that actually that's involved with it has in-depth reporting of growths, what's going on in the business, and everything that's going on inside of them. So you can really get in depth to see what's happening inside of that actual business. So Tesla, you can see their growth patterns and you could see their sales and all that kind of data is always available to them. The one problem is with even Pokemon is that Pokemon itself would be a stock. Everything that's underneath Pokemon is a product. So in general, if you're going to use that ideal, you have to look at Pokemon is your number one, is the stock, and everything underneath it's a product, and you need to worry about what Pokemon is doing itself as a company and continuing its growth patterns as Tesla, as all these other places. Now, a lot of people like to consider each individual set as a stock inside of Pokemon, and you can do that. But the problem is that if something happens to Pokemon itself, Pokemon International, let's say tomorrow Pokemon International closes its doors, They screwed up. Millennial printing drove them out of business, and now their clothes are down. TCG sales are down. Whatever they want to go with. What happens to the Pokemon itself? What happens to the sets? You're no longer getting new sets. Now you're in a situation where Pokemon's going to go on a decline regardless of what you do because the parent company is gone. So as long as Pokemon stays in place, yeah, you could treat each individual one as an overall, each one as a stock, keep playing that market like it's all inside of the stock market, but it's also not comparable because of that parent company standing over it. If something happens to the parent company, doesn't matter what each one of those individual stocks does. I mean, it's going to all be affected instantly by that maneuver.
Yeah, it's an interesting angle, and thank you, Andrew Lopez, because it actually
Hmm.
that's the first time it's the first time I ever heard that kind of angle be a frame that way. And so me now thinking, okay, if I were to invest, if I decided I'm going to invest into Pokemon, right? And I decided I'm going to pick X card up and I'm going to invest in this card. Should I be thinking in the fundamentals of this card and the whatever I believe, the return will be in 5 years, 10 years? Based on the fundamentals of this one card, or should I be thinking, like you're explaining, the IP, the company?
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, if the company goes to crap, then this one card might have no shot at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's the one card, the one collectible is it's weighed heavily by the
Hmm.
company, not the card itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I just look at it even like go Pontiac, go Humvee. You know, when Humvee went out of business, it took every piece of equipment with it. When Pontiac closed down, when Chrysler or GM went and said we're going to pull Pontiac's name and there's no longer Pontiac out there, every Pontiac product got sucked down to nothing because there was no parts, there was no support. The name was gone, the parent company's gone, and it kills everything around it slowly. Yeah, some of them cars are staying around. Some of the vintage ones will stay around, and people will move around. But once again, it becomes then more of a generational deal. You and I might sit there, even like Jake said, even if they had no value, he'd still want to go to a dumpster and raid the whole dumpster of Pokemon cards because you love it. But if you don't have that IP, that main business pushing everything, eventually the generation. So what happens when you and I are no longer, converting carbon dioxide or oxygen into carbon dioxide, and we're feeding daisies, and is the next generation going to jump in and take these cards, or are they just going to throw them into a dumpster finally because there's no value to them? They don't have any value to these because the IP is no longer there to make it valuable.
and just a little counter argument to that, and I think Andrew Lopez is right,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's to an extent, right? So he says, uh, fundamentally, some sets or specifically, certain cards, what have you, when you're looking at the big picture, they're still going to be around. People are still going to want them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is my whole, I've been throwing this arbitrary number of 10% versus 90%, right? Like the 10% will over survive, will continue to grow,
Yep.
right? And the bottom 90% will probably just fall away and will probably at a
Mm-hmm.
lower number market value compared to today.
Yeah.
And this is my theory, like 20 years from now, 10 to 20 years from now. And so yes, the 10% being, your trophy cards, your very low pop set cards, things of that nature. I think you're right, Andrew.
Yep.
I think there's going to be a percentage of us that are still going to value those
Mm-hmm.
cards, but and again, arbitrary number. But then that 90% of collectibles, it's going to go away. It's going to go away. It's going to have very little to no value. And it's just a matter of, okay, what are you investing in? Are you investing in the top 10% of collectibles or bottom 90? And I'm pretty sure there's I forget his name, but I know his name gets thrown around a lot. I even follow him, but Reserved Investments. He,
Oh yeah.
he talks about a wide range of collectibles, and I'm pretty sure that throughout the history, and when you look at recessions and market crashes and 2008 and things like that, you could probably, just a guess here, I don't know, you could probably pinpoint a few collectibles that crashed and
Mm-hmm.
have never rebounded since 2008. Just a guess. Just a guess. I don't know,
What?
but it's one of those the odds of probability. Odds of
Mm-hmm.
probability says that there's going to be at least one collectible that was at a peak at 2008, but once that recession happened, it crashed. That one collectible has never rebounded.
No, no, you're absolutely right, and that I'm sure that there's some out there, and if you were to do some research, there's been that's probably happened several times in every recession or any economic downturn. I mean, things go down and then they disappear, or they never rebound, or they just kind of stay with the nostalgia of some people. But once again, like Andrew Lopez says here, Pontiac is still valuable, and yeah, you're right, it's valuable to some people, but every year it's less and less. As time goes on, if the parent company is no longer there, it will start to lose more and more value, just because nostalgia starts going away. Yes, this was, my dad's car. This is my dad's Pontiac Bonneville. I've kept it for myself, but are the grandkids going to be interested in that car? Dad kept it on the shelf like we do. Yeah, we've got slabs, sitting all over the place. Yeah, cool. I've got a slab. My son looks at it and goes, yeah, that's cool. He never played the game. The game's gone. What value is he going to have to his kids? It's just going to be a piece of plastic sitting on the shelf that grandpa had. And eventually those things will intrinsically keep losing value to the point of where they're just
Right.
no longer of interest.
Right. And I hold vintage product, vintage sealed boxes, and whatever their price is today, right, compared to the peak. But I know that compared to the peak, the peak was a very exceptional time in the hobby. Um, Whatever the price is today, in that worst case scenario, right? Pokemon's gone and whatever. Sure, in a couple of years, it's still going to hold a very good value,
Yep.
but it's probably now $8,000 compared to 12 to 16 today.
Yeah.
$8,000, you'll still take it, right? Versus nothing.
Oh, yeah.
But fast forward another 5 years, do people still want it then? Do they not? They see, again, psychology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Psychologically, people are looking at this dip, right? It's going down in price. Some people, there's going to be a percentage buying into it because they see the value.
Yep.
There's going to be another percentage that says it's dipping and it's dipping
Yep.
more, and
Time to get out.
I don't want to hold that back, So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just one of those things that we can never really accurately guess. We can never
No.
accurately guess.
No, and that's the thing is that most people, you really have to realize that we're all 90% of what we're saying right now is complete guesstimates. Anything could shift this thing another direction. And if you go from last year to this year, all it takes is one swing of a door to send this thing a completely different direction. And who knows? Kim Kardashian could start putting out Pokemon cards tomorrow, and all of a sudden we got 10 million people following Pokemon because she comes out to the pool with a Charizard around her neck like Logan Paul. I mean, it's something crazy could just send this thing completely through the roof, and nobody would know why. So yeah, I mean, everything is speculating, especially in investing. It's mainly speculating, but you try and use history to make your best decisions and your best guesses to try and put it in a direction that it's going. But you always have to remember that it could change. Even collectibles. If you are just calling this a collectible and you're putting it on the shelf, at any moment that collectible could shift directions and go up or down or become more valuable or less valuable by doing nothing with it. It just depends on what happens around and the outside of it. So, like I said, it's all speculating. We're all guessing, and that's why I think there's so many heated debates right now on, is modern investable? Is this investable? Is that investable? Is because everybody has sat down and probably ran these numbers 100 times, and we all have a slightly different trajectory or a feeling on why we feel something's going that way. And who's right, who's wrong? It may not matter. A combination of these things could make half, 3/4 of us right. And it's all speculating. We're all guessing.
Yeah, and again, just my feel, and again, this might be even an ignorant, statement, but I just feel like even with all the data that we have, even with all the educated, guessing that we're doing, right, and we feel like we're being very responsible and dotting all of our I's and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I feel like there's a healthy percentage that once you have all that data and whatnot, it's based on emotion because I feel like this is what's gonna happen. That's emotion. Even because
Yep.
data is just data because you don't know what the future holds. All you
Yep.
can just go based off is that data and make a guess. But when you're ready to pull that trigger, it's an
Mm-hmm.
emotional trigger at the
It
end of the
is.
day. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why when, that's why sometimes I've been kind of getting out of these chats, or I just keep my mouth shut. Because you have people that say something against your emotional trigger on why you may have gone the direction you did.
Yeah.
And are they right or wrong? We don't know. You won't know possibly for 5 to 10 years. So lately, that's why even I did my video where I'm stepping away from the drama. If I see this stuff happening, I'm just getting away from it, because everybody's I don't want to say anybody's wrong, and I don't want to say anybody's right. It's really just going to come down to, at the end of the day, what swings happen and if you can adjust to those swings to continue to keep your course going in the right way. Um, Before we lose it, I actually wanted to ask you this one, and Professor Oak actually beat me to it. He put it on the chat here, and I want to ask you, what's the biggest misconception in this hobby right now? Oof, I know.
Jesus.
That's why I wanted to give you the at bat first on that one.
Oh man, that sucks. I got the first at bat in the bottom of the ninth of a tie game. Let's see, biggest misconception. So right off the bat, right? No pun intended. But right off the bat, my gut feeling once again, because a lot of this, I'm a gut feeling guy, because I'm not a market driven person in this hobby. I'm willing to have the conversation as long as you're very aware that it's a gut feeling. I don't
Oh
look
yeah.
at the date as much, other than me going on eBay for 12 hours out of the day and
Wife yelling at you in the background, get off of your phone. Yeah, trust me, I get that too.
that's about it. But the biggest misconception to me, and it obviously has to do a lot with today's video, but this has been, I feel like, an ongoing conversation for quite a bit, is that the modern is investable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my very my knee jerk reaction is no, right? Modern
Mm-hmm.
is not investable. That's just kind of my take, right? Until I'm able to sit back and kind of, rationalize some things, justify the counter argument. Sometimes I just like to look at the counter argument, even though I'm stuck over here or this is what I'm going to do. I like to think of the counter argument and why would it actually work. So why would it actually work? Well, I go back to the maybe this is the new world where we live in the hobby, and it's here to stay, right? Now that we have garnered all this attention and it's grown to X amount, it's going to stay very healthy from the standpoint of a population within the hobby. Therefore, it'll never dwindle unless there's a dead era. But if that's the case, then maybe there's a chance that these things are investable, because one day modern will be vintage. Because 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you would take a guess that the people involved in the hobby is going to be even larger than today. By what factor, I don't know, but I'm willing to guess that it'll be larger. But at the same time, when I look at talking about fundamentals, talking about what actually gives something its value, the whole Pratism, older, rarer, minter, better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if if the vintage, and you look at today's markets on vintage across the board, let's generalize it. I think it's safe to generalize here, regardless of its price point. We all know what the price points are for a lot of these items. When you look at their price points, it's based on their rarity, natural attrition, the fact that there was a point where we cared and then we stopped caring, and what happened to all this product, and more factors that I could probably even bring up from off the top right now. The way that I like to describe it is the cat's out of the bag.
Mm-hmm.
Cat's out of the bag, and everyone's investing in every single set, right? And a lot of the sets, I don't know if it's 50-50. Again, arbitrary numbers. I like to use arbitrary numbers just for effect. But 50-50 is like some are going to do good, some are going to do bad. And people are investing right off the gate. Right off the gate, they're investing in it. They're buying X amount. And maybe it's calmed down a bit right now, but I felt like towards the end of the year, last year, maybe January still, prices for modern product off the gate was, way above MSRP, right? Way above. People were still playing that
Mm-hmm.
game. I can charge above MSRP because people are buying it. I
Yep.
feel like it's come down a little bit, but even MSRP today is considered what, 140?
One
Like
143.99.
exactly. MSRP back in 2018 was, I feel like I could get booster boxes for
It
$80, $85.
yeah. MSRP, just to let you know, has not changed since 2008.
Right. And
But
MSRP is
yeah,
the
the
same, but the
yep.
prices that we're paying for has
Hmm.
definitely gone up, and
Oh yeah.
close to double, very close to double.
Sometimes
Um,
yeah.
right. So yeah, so from that standpoint is, how are we justifying that? Especially now, if the gut feeling, the guess is that the population within the hobby has grown. Pokemon knows this, so therefore they're going to print to demand, especially
Oh yeah.
now, post COVID, or you know, whatever. But post COVID, they're going to print to demand now. Cat's out of the bag. Everyone's keeping either everything sealed, or they're sleeving everything that's being cracked open, or even
Mm.
better, sending it off to grading.
Yeah.
We had that question in that live on IG about the $750 Umbreon alternate art
Yeah.
PSA 10.
I
I,
I
I
wouldn't spend it.
I don't see it.
I don't
So
either.
to me, that's the biggest misconception. Just to make it a long rant short, it's the biggest misconception is that everything is investable, and this is from sealed product to slabs to raw cards.
Yeah.
That's what I'll go with.
Yeah, and I could really see your points on that part of it, and I agree with most of it. I think the biggest thing is when it comes to investment, even myself, I tend to stay away from the first wave of any product. Evolving Skies, Brilliant Stars, all of it. I haven't bought in any investments for Brilliant Stars. I've opened Brilliant Stars because I do open sets and I do enjoy it, but I haven't gone into the investment side of it because I feel like that set still has some downward pressure coming on it. His new sets come out, Astro Radiance, Pokemon Go. That set might start to see some push down and some pushing on that going downwards because of that. There's always downward pressure from a new best set coming out. Um, Evolving Skies, that Umbreon reaching for the moon. There's no way I'd spend $750 on it because my biggest my biggest thing is that how many more of those cards are going to be found yet? And I just did a video where we had sold Evolving Skies. I hope that the boxes that we bought, that's where the question comes down to, are people opening this? Is it still being opened? Is this product all just being held? I hope that nobody was buying that at $180 a booster box for an investment. I hope that was my thoughts is if someone's paying that kind of money for a booster box of this, they're opening it. There's a reason they're purchasing that. And they're not buying like high quantities of it, they're buying one. So I'm guessing that these are people that are buying two. They're people that are trying to get that chase card. They're chasing that Umbreon after chasing the moon. Or they're looking for a set card for themselves, or they're looking for these kind of things for their own collections and stuff. And there's no way to prove that. I mean, unless I called every individual or messaged every individual to find out what they actually did with the box, which would be a fun study. I think it'd be kind of.
It wouldn't be, yeah, yeah.
I was
See,
gonna say I might actually do that just because now I'm curious. I might send out a message to everybody I sold a box to, and just see if they'll tell me what they did with it. If it
that's a
was,
very good experiment. And I'm
I had,
pretty sure you know more of the people that sell, within, your own
yeah,
circle. You should reach out to all these people and tell them the same thing. Like, hey,
I
how easy or hard would it be to just a simple email, a spam email to everyone, and
yeah.
see who responds.
That's what I'm curious. If I were to go to go and grab the email address for them and just send, and I sold 30 Evolving Skies boxes. Just send them a quick message. Check yes or no. Did you open this or keep it sealed? That's really what I want to know.
Yeah,
I'd be curious out of them 30 boxes, how many of them are still sitting in a closet or sitting on a table, or how many of them are actually being opened.
that would be
And
amazing data.
that'd be huge data. I'm going to do that.
Yeah,
That's
that would
actually
be amazing.
I'll get back on that one because that's going to be kind of interesting. So,
Ivy mentioned, and this
mhm,
is, and I have thought about this actually, but now that she mentioned it, like, you know what, let's just throw it out there. So back in the day, back in the 90s, if I
mhm,
recall, Toys R Us being the most expensive, and then Target, Walmart, you can get them for cheaper. But $2.99 to $3.99 a pack. Today, like a Target is what, $4.29 a pack? Considering
Yeah.
inflation, considering inflation, I mean, you've only gone up what, 25%, if that. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's like being generous. So that doesn't quite match up with inflation, right?
It doesn't. And I've always wondered that too. Why aren't a pack six, like she said, $6.50 to $7 per pack? But I also think it comes down to the production side of things has become a lot more efficient, because if you looked at the original way that they made Pokemon cards at Wizards of the Coast, they used to put them up on those easels, and then they used to sit there and actually stamp them out by hand. There was a guy actually sitting there lining them up and stamping them through. But now everything is pretty much automated. So you're changing the production style, number one, because that was an issue that Wizards of the Coast was running into when they were doing Expedition, Aquapolis, and Sky Ridges. That's why they went down to 9 card packs versus the 10 card or 11 card packs with the energy, was because the costs were too much. So they were compensating by removing cards. And once Pokemon took over, they found printing companies. I think they automated the process more, and by doing that, they actually have been able to maintain that price a little bit more in that fashion. That and mass production. They every era they produce more and more and more, and of course, as you produce more and more and more, you can actually settle out costs a little bit better. Whether it's saving a penny or so here or there, it adds up to a large amount of money. So,
That makes sense. I think
I,
they're already saving double the money just by slimming down on the stock. Just that alone.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Today's stock
So,
is just one of the things that I hate the most. It's just whenever I do open a pack of modern, I feel those cards and it's
oh, I
just like,
know they're thin. I know. I remember, you go to a vintage card to a modern card, and they've lost a lot of thickness off over them on them over the years, and that could be another adjustment they made too. I mean, there's several ways I think they could have done it over the years, and I think they have to, because let's be honest, every other TCG is right at that price range too, so it's kind of like the uniformed pricing of a booster pack for almost all of them.
okay,
So,
so that just gave me a thought.
mhm.
Why would other TCGs, and the one that I'm thinking about, right, or at least the one that I'm kind of, not dabbling, I like it. I just got 3 boxes of Wilderness Metazoo.
Yep.
When you look at their stock is nice and thick, right?
Mhm.
Well, if they're just starting out, well, a company that's just starting out needs to be very aware of their spending habits, right? Just like everyone else, and what they're putting into their product so that their ROI, is healthy. Well, how come other TCGs and even new ones like MetaZoo that are not well established are able to have this better quality versus
Yeah.
Pokemon that is probably the most established of them all, but yet uses the worst, stock in the game probably. What do you think? Why do you think that is? Is it just the bottom dollar at the end of the day? Like, is it just profits?
I think so. At the end of the day, the more that they can produce their cheaper quantity, the more money that they make. And that's just it. I mean, I MetaZoo is a new TCG. I be honest with you, I don't know how a new TCG coming in can be competitive with like Pokemon, or be competitive with, like an established TCG when it comes to the printing. Because, you don't own the printing companies, you're at the mercy of them, and they should be charging the same amount, or relatively the same amount, or Pokemon should be getting a discount
Right.
because of the quantity. I mean, if you don't have to set up a machine and that thing can run for 12 days straight, you're making money as a printer because you don't have the labor of setting that up or doing that work. And having MetaZoo come in and running, realistically what they actually sold for first editions on most of these stuff, because they actually put out the box numbers, was probably a day, maybe 2 days worth of printing comparatively to some of these bigger sets. And I honestly don't know how their booster packs wouldn't be more, unless, like you said, Pokemon in general or these bigger TCGs are just strictly making more money.
Yeah.
They're taking the savings and putting it into their pockets,
Right.
instead of giving you a $1 discount or 50 cents discount on that pack.
And they have that leverage as the bigger IP, being the bigger IP, being the big man
Yep.
in the in the room. They have that leverage to make lesser of a quality of a product and people are still going to buy it. People are still going to eat it up. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And that's just, that has to be what it has, where it went. I mean, it just has to be getting sucked, that Pokemon's taking in its profit. It's kind of weird that Professor Oak has not had any cards in his Walmart. Because right now, my Walmart is stuffed. I mean, I could literally go there and get every set from Vivid Voltage on, and they probably have hundreds of packs of each.
It's got to be a regional thing because
Mm-hmm.
here in, or I'm not going to say here in Texas, here in San Antonio, I would agree with that statement with Oak here.
Really?
They're always empty.
Huh.
I always every time I'm whether I'm just making a grocery run, whatever it is. If I'm at a Walmart or a Target, I'm hitting the aisle. I'm hitting the Pokemon aisle just to see what's available. And if there's product there, it's like the stuff that nobody wants. It's the decks, it's it's stuff that nobody wants. You're not gonna find the single packs or even blisters. Um, yeah, it's very odd. So here in San Antonio, not so celebrations. Oddly enough, celebrations when that came out and once they really started hitting the stores, that was healthy. Celebrations, you can find
Huh.
it. You can go randomly and you can find celebrations. But when it comes to the regular sets, you can't find them.
Well, see, that's what I was laughing because I was at my Walmart today. There's still Celebration ZTBs on the shelf.
Really?
Yeah, I just
I
bought
haven't seen them.
we just bought two of them today because we went in there and they were hidden back behind the Darkness Ablaze and all the other ones. So they were back behind and I could see the black end with the white edge just kind of peeking out. And I went back and I dug them out. And sure enough, there were two Celebration ones sitting right behind there. And it's like, so we still even had Celebrations hidden in one of the Walmarts here that we went to in town today. So,
Yeah, Derek Rab says that in Southern California, his Targets and WalMarts never have anything either.
huh.
Yeah, it must be a regional thing. I don't know. I don't know. That's been very weird.
Yeah.
Again, if you really tried, if I really tried, I'm sure I can get some right if I like found out when they
Dropped
do the
off.
stock, whatever. But the fact that I can't just randomly on a random day go
Mm-hmm.
into a Walmart and Target and find product. Well, what does that say about about the hobby? Is that healthy? Is that healthy that these shelves are still empty, or are there other issues behind it? Like maybe there's not enough supply hitting the shelves.
Yeah, and that's just weird because but it's so regional. Some areas like here were packed. And it's why would this area be completely stuffed? Because let's be honest, we're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
My population of this whole county is 8,000 people. So I mean, a whole county for a Walmart is 8,000 people, and yet our stores are completely stuffed. But yet the markets, the areas, I mean, literally, I got V boxes. I could get everything from Glaceon, Leafeon to the Lucario ones to. I just picked up the Arceus V's boxes. Picked up 4 of those, 2 from each Walmart today, and I just took 2 from each one, and there was 6, 8 of them on the shelf, and they're stuffed. I mean, you can't even see over the shelf. They got so many of them. The upper decks are full of ETBs.
really.
I mean, Darkness Ablaze, all the way back Sword and Shield ones from the reprint. There's still probably 40 Sword and Shield ones at each one. I mean,
Now,
it's
yeah, what you're describing, I've definitely seen on Instagram, right? People
yeah.
posting, oh, look, it's fully stocked, right? It could just be one of those things where they literally hit the day that it was stocked, within an hour, and they just got lucky, or they know exactly what's going on with the
Mm-hmm.
scheduling, or like we're saying, right? It could be regional. Who knows?
Yeah,
Maybe it's more popular in certain regions than others. Who knows?
yeah. I mean, just like these Pikachu V boxes. So we went there last week Thursday, and we picked up. There was 2 V boxes left on the shelf, the Pikachu ones. We took one, and we opened it, got the Charizard out of it, and we left one. We went back because restock day is Tuesday, Thursday at our Walmarts here, and we went back, grabbed some stuff on Friday with my wife, and they literally had another stack of those,
Wow.
20 deep on the shelf. It's like, so overnight they went from having 2 to 20 deep, and that stack is still sitting there today, and that was a week ago.
So, other than the Shining Fates packs, what other packs does that include?
That's only Shining Fates.
Oh, it's only Shining Fates.
That's
Okay.
why I like the Pikachu V. That's why I actually bought a bunch of those when they first came out. There was 2 reasons. I laughed because the way I found my Charizard was probably the most cliche way that they've heard. So when Shining Fates first came out, there was always a theory, and Unlisted Leaf even put it out there, that one out of every 12 of these boxes has a Charizard in it. They come
Okay.
in boxes of 6, and if you get serialized numbers 1 and 2, one out of those 12 will have a Charizard in it.
Okay.
And Corviknight packs were the most common Charizard pulls. This is back in my opening days. This is what they always said. So Corviknight packs were the most pulls for Charizard. And when we opened that up, when I pulled the Charizard out of there last week, it was out of one of these V boxes and out of a Corviknight pack.
Interesting.
It was like, you got to be kidding me. It's like the most. We were saying this way back last year, February, March, when we were talking about that. And sure as nobody's business, it pulled it just the way it said. It's like, you got to be kidding me. I couldn't have made that any more cliche than what just happened with that.
That's very interesting. I'm always curious when people find out, the whole like you just mentioned, 1 out of 12 pack, 1 out of 12 boxes, or even the mapping within boxes. Like who's like the one that's finding out,
Yeah.
this exact data, because you've got to be opening up a lot of product in order to be able to gather this information, right? So it's been interesting. Nostalgia Nomics also mentions that he's had the same thing. Yeah, that's normal. Where he lives, Walmart's, Targets, always nothing on the shelves. I don't know where he lives, what region, what state, but um,
well, I'm just going to
yeah, you
clarify.
gotta.
I lied. I don't have any stock here. I don't have any product in this area. Just stay away.
I was gonna say, man, I think you own the market.
I was going to say, I own the market right now. I'm going to go protect my Walmarts. We're taking up stake and holding ground.
Yeah,
That's
and again,
weird.
I'm never one to buy the single packs, but if there's an ETB, I'll take a swing. At MSRP,
Mm-hmm.
I'll definitely take a swing. I'm
Oh,
the
yeah.
guy that says MSRP, I'm good for.
Yep.
A penny above MSRP, no, thank you. I'm not gonna do that. And so, yeah, whenever I see product there, but never, man. The last time I saw an ETB of anything, celebrations, and we're
Jeez.
talking November, December.
I can go right now and get Fusion Strike, Brilliant Star, or Darkness Ablaze, Vivid Voltage, Sword and Shield, and I just
Okay,
found 2 celebration ones.
okay, so I figured out a new segment for you. You're
Yeah,
gonna go do shopping for your customers or your
there we go.
viewers. So,
Yeah.
so you take your camera and you point your camera at the shelves. All right, guys, what do
Which
you
one
guys
do you
want?
want?
What do you guys want? Hey,
Start
Patty,
doing
right
bids
now,
on it. Start a little bidding on. Do Whatnot. I'll do a Whatnot app inside of the
inside of Walmart or a Target.
inside of Walmart or Target. What's the bid? I got 70. What do we got? 85. Okay, we're sending it.
That's hilarious.
Do a
Let's
Whatnot
see.
app
North
and
Texas here. Some stores get scalped literally and delivery. Yeah, North Texas. So I mean,
mm-hmm.
the largest city north of Texas is Dallas, but obviously you've got more towns above Dallas. But I don't know what's going on, man. Don't know what's
And
going on.
Pokey Grinding just probably maybe said it too. They have a staffing issue down by. He thinks it's a large staffing issue, and that
Okay.
could be too. Just not enough people to stock shelves fast enough.
Mm. Yeah. Lopez
Because
says
here
that.
I know it's the same woman every time. I mean, she does all the stuff from baseball all the way through. So she comes from MJ Holding. They come
Okay.
in a little cube van, a 10 by 10 cube van. They pull up and they come to the front door and then they bring it all in. They stock baseball cards, the whole TCG aisle. Everything's all done by one person.
Yeah. So Andrew says that there's people that sit out there, in a van and with their buddies and whatnot. I was under the assumption that that was all over. That game was over. That there's no more scalping because, well, you don't have scalper prices anymore. But that's the case, and that's surprising.
I see it for base. They don't seem to touch Pokemon here. They're after basketball all of a sudden. They're really after basketball cards. They'll clean them out pretty fast. And then some of the prism and so some of the high sought after baseball cards, they'll take those, and football. They'll clean out more of the football, basketball, and hockey. I guess that's probably where the sports cards market must have shifted to after everything. But I haven't been watching the sports market all that tight. But
And
that's
then
where they're
last week,
scalping out of here.
yeah. And then last week there was that story where I think a person got shot and killed by the local police department. I think it was even sheriffs in Florida. Um, because of Pokemon, you know, people stealing Pokemon. I was like, is that still a thing? Are people still stealing Pokemon? Like, I thought, I, I thought we were back to where we can afford it. I don't know.
I was gonna say you can pick it up at the store. I mean, what are you complaining about from what we just came from?
Yeah, and you being in Wisconsin, obviously there was that one story where I
Oh
came
yeah,
from
there's the
actually,
fist. Yeah. Well,
where there was fist fight, a gun was drawn
yeah,
within
yeah, and
customers.
that was over Pokemon. Well, that yeah, over Pokemon cards. There, we
No,
had
that was
actually that was over sports cards, wasn't it? And that Pokemon got
that's
sucked
right.
into
That's right.
that.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
So
You're right.
here in our one Walmart, they've had a limit. So the whole time this thing's been going on, all the craziness, our one Walmart always has had stock because the manager of it put a two item limit on stuff right away because probably December or November of 2020, they had a literal fist fight of four guys fighting in the checkout aisles for baseball cards. So the manager
Oh,
said enough, and they took everything and put it by a tobacco. They locked it all away. So I said when I was doing doing openings with my son on the channel, it was awesome because I could just go down to Walmart. Everybody else is sitting there talking about buying Shining Fates for $100 a ETB to open it, and I just go to my local Walmart and buy one for $50, and it's like, you know, it was just kind of funny because that was just lucky that one did it. Otherwise, the other one was always empty. I mean, up until that mass explosion of product back in what was it, October, early October, end of September last year, it was always bare. There was nothing in it. But after that happened, it's like everybody was scalping up in there and just went, we can't keep up with it anymore. we give up.
Professor Oak says, "Oh, it's Florida. I have to carry here." Professor Oak, do you carry? I never would have, you know, I never would have figured that anyone in the hobby would be you to carry. But if that's the case, you're such a cowboy.
A British cowboy. what was in the one chat? A sexy British cowboy. That there we go.
Sexy British
Yeah,
cowboy.
someone called him he's sexy because of his voice. And the one with Mason, that was pretty funny. Derek Rab, are you the only am I the only person here excited about Astral Radiance and not so excited about Go? I like some of the alternate arts out of Astral Radiance, not gonna lie. Overall in the set, from what I've seen thus far, I Astral Radiance is not really hitting it for me personally. Um, Pokemon Go, well, like I said, I'm gonna be bullish on Pokemon Go just because of the ETBs are Mewtwo. I'm hoping for a Mewtwo alternate art. There's a lot of things potentially Mewtwo in that set that it's one of my favorite Pokemon, so it's automatically kind of drawn me to it. So I might be a little blinded just because of it. Once Astral Radiance comes out, and maybe I'll change my tune a little bit, but we'll see.
So within that set, and I looked at whatever's available as far as what's been revealed. Do you think there's going to be any rarity to this set? Any pool, any really strong pools that are going to be rare, pool
I don't
rates or
know.
whatnot?
I mean, the one trainer gallery card I'm really looking forward to is the Leonard Charizard card. I've been wanting that one. I actually pulled that at VMAX Climax, which was fun. So I actually got that in the Japanese version of it. But I definitely want to get the English counterpart to it. I think it'll be cool to have both of them.
Yeah.
But I haven't really looked at the set. Like I said, I stay out of them. I'd seen just the basic, the Hoot Hoot one. I know Professor Oak is really, really onto that alternate art with the
That alternate art, yeah.
the alternate art
I,
one for that.
I remember, I forget what live I was on. I remember Mason was on, and we were talking about Brilliant Stars, right? That's where that Hoot Hoot's from. And Brilliant Stars had not come out yet. And I said, you know what? Let's go. As they're talking, I'm gonna pull it up, check it out. And the one that stood out right away was that Hoot Hoot alt art. I was like, hey, have you guys seen this? Hoot
Yeah.
Hoot? And I think somebody. I think Mason said yeah, and then I think Oak had not seen it yet. He pulled it up and then saw it. But it's eye catching right away, eye catching out of the
Oh yeah.
entire set. And as I'm looking through the Go set, Mewtwo V Star is that's a pretty sexy card.
Yeah.
That's a pretty sexy card there.
And now I see that Andrew must have looked, and there is an alternate art Mewtwo. So I'm gonna be pretty hot for that. That
Alternate art.
Mewtwo alternate art. I'm gonna be all over that just because
Wow.
I want that for my collection.
Yeah.
For sure.
I do have a little Mewtwo collection. It's the smallest one of a single Pokemon. I think I may only have like 8 Mewtwo cards, but yeah, Mewtwo is just one of those. It's very collectible. It's just like my fourth because I have a Pikachu set, Slap set, Charizard set. I have a Team Rocket set. Mewtwo probably falls on that fourth on the list. But yeah, that's a pretty sick looking Mewtwo. It's the first time I see that one.
Yeah, for me, it's evolutions. I love evolutions, so I've got a lot of different evolutions cards, and then Mewtwo. I got it. Probably just a guess, unless I pulled out everything. I probably got 30 different Mewtwo cards, and then I probably have. I have a ton of. I've almost got all the Flareon cards. I'm missing some of the first edition ones and stuff.
All the Flareon.
Yeah, that's my favorite. That's my number one Pokemon, so I got a lot of Flareon stuff.
Binder just like or slab.
Yeah, binder cards. I've also been picking up the graded ones like this one, which is the Japanese promo, gym promo. That's and cool. Then picked up that first edition Dark Flareon finally. So I've been trying to get them in graded, and I'm not really being particular about the grading because I don't want to spend, buku bucks to try and complete it. But I figure just get them all, and then if I want to start switching them out, then I can play that game later on and just slowly flip-flopping them.
Yeah. So my favorite Pokemon, and if I chose Bulbasaur, there's probably be way too many. But Aerodactyl and Articuno, the one I really wanted to make a set just because of how beautiful it is, Articuno, just display ability. Yeah. That would be the one to go with, and I would have to do a slab. But it's just one of those things where it's like, it's going to cost so much, right? Because that's usually not my go-to today. That almost feels like a set goal, right? To go for all the Articunos. And so I'm more of a just unique items, whatever. Naturally, accidentally, I have a lot of Pikachus and I have a lot of Charizards, which of course, they're plentiful of, options out there. What do they call it in PSA? That registry. Yeah, I'm not gonna get close because I chose the wrong Pokemon to do that on.
you're not gonna rank.
Not even close.
Well, the problem is, like I even said, Flareon. I'm not even picky on grading companies, so some of them are from CGC. I've got some from GMA. I've got some from, and like I said, I always figure that as time goes on for the collectability, I would just slowly, as I get more money, flip one of them out, and then I'll probably pick a grading company eventually and just try to be more consistent on it over time.
That's the way to do it. I do a lot of that. Even today, I do a lot of that where I flipped out of a 9 to a 10. Very rare. That's a very rare, thing. But just based on price, sometimes it just makes sense compared to where I got it from. Where I got that 9 from to a 10. If I just sell the 9 today and just throw in an extra $30, I get the 10. But it's very rare. But there's been a very few. More often, I've been able to upgrade 8s to 9s. What I find myself doing more often is being able to upgrade 9s to better looking 9s.
Yes, I've actually I've done that with one of my Flareon cards now. Is that I found that's one of the reasons I do like CGC, and I know a lot of people don't like CGC CGC cards, but I like CGCs for the subgrades. Because if you're trying to get a better or stronger 9, and we have that discussion, could you buy CGC card a 9 or 9.5 and have it upgraded to a PSA 10? And the answer to that is you probably could on some of them, but I like the subgrades from CGC because the biggest thing that'll really knock you when it comes to doing that is the centering. So if you can find a CGC card with a high centering grade at a 9.5, let's say, you have a good chance of potentially bumping it up to that PSA 10. Or like you said, you could use the subgrades to slightly better your actual collector card. So if you're trying for a 9 and you want a stronger 9, you could definitely check the subgrades out to visually, on the internet, do that. if you can't get them in person.
So I myself, shout out to Ivy again, middleman. She grades through all of these companies, and I have my stub ticket, my Brewers, which actually now that I have you, Wisconsinite,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you heard the story, but I have a stub ticket a baseball game that I went to. This was a Cubs at Houston Astros in Milwaukee.
Huh? No, I didn't hear.
Exactly. Exactly. So, the Cubs were playing in Houston, but due to Hurricane Ike, they canceled, they had to be canceled. It was so late in the season, they
Mm-hmm.
needed this game to happen. And it
Yeah,
was such a tight race, and the
they
standings,
had to do it. Yeah.
they had to do it. But as far as like scheduling and what parks were available and, rainy season, late in the fall or somewhere in the fall, getting close to it, they were running out of options, and it was down to Cincinnati and Milwaukee. Now, Cincinnati, if they went with that option, they would have had to play Houston, I believe, would have had to play within 3 hours of their last game
Oh,
or something along those lines, right?
yeah.
In order to pick that, so meaning they would have had to play it in the morning and then played nighttime against the new series against Chicago. So ultimately, the decision was, well, we got to play it in Milwaukee.
Yep.
Well, obviously, there were plenty of articles that came out of this of how pissed off Houston was because Houston was in the race, for the
Yep.
playoffs. Because everyone knows in baseball, Chicago is an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half drive from Milwaukee.
Yep.
So everyone knows, or I know as a Cub fan, Miller Park is known as Wrigley North.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
because you get more Wrigley fans, you get more Cub fans at Miller Park than than anything else. So when this happened and tickets were, I think, $20 to $25, you get your tickets. First come, first serve. You sit down wherever you can sit down. So if you got
Yeah.
in first, you were able to pick that center
Front row,
behind the
right?
catcher. You.
Yep.
So this was amazing, and of course, just that alone is a rare thing on its own, right? To
Yep.
be able to go to a game within your town against two other teams that have nothing to do with your town. It's not the Brewers.
Yeah.
This is Houston. This is Cubs. Well, let's add on to that rarity, and Carlos Zambrano throws a no hitter.
Oh,
So that
that's
just adds,
huge.
yeah, that just adds to it. And I held on to this ticket for that reason. And finally, recently I was able to get that thing, graded through PSA, via Ivy. But my original point to that was I sent off a Charizard as well to get crossed over, a CGC 9. So when you're starting mentioning about what you should be looking for, the centering and whatnot,
Yep.
I may have a picture of it to see what the actual categories were and what grade it got. And I bought this from Nick, old school Pokemon. Shout out to him. Um, so yeah, now I'm curious to see what those categories were, what they were graded. There's always a chance that they give it a 10. That chance is probably 1%. I would be very lucky, I think, if I get a 9. So hopefully I just
Yep.
get it a 9. It's a CGC 9, so hopefully I just get it in a PSA
Equal
9, and
grade and you're done.
I'll be very happy. But along
Yeah.
with that same commission, I have that ticket stub, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah. And that's like I said, that it's never a guarantee. And I know some people have been making this big investment move and buying graded CGC 9.5s or 9s, and I'm gonna go and send them to PSA because I'm gonna get 10s. And it's like,
Are you not in the crack game?
yeah, no, I don't crack.
You're not in the
I
crack game?
I
Okay.
always said, like I said, certain cards like these Flareons and things like that for my own personal nature. If I went with PSA, I would probably crack them and try and see if I could get the PSA 10s if they're close. If I know the centering's good and all that, I would probably take the chance at those. But in general, I would never do it as an investment strategy to buy CGC cards or GMA cards and try and crack them and try and get better PSA grades. I just don't. The risk reward to that is just astronomically stupid. You know, PSA, depending on what grader you get and how happy he is that day, could really even determine that factor. Because you could send a card in you think is fabulous to PSA and it'll come back an 8. and then you can send it back again, and it'll come back a 9, and then you send it back again. Well, Pikachu Illustrator, perfect example. How many times did that thing go through grading before it finally got the 10?
Exactly. And I'm pretty sure that probably had to do a lot more with the influence of Logan Paul, knowing
Yep.
that it was going to go to him. Because I think that's how it happened, right?
Hmm.
Logan Paul didn't regrade that card; it was graded beforehand. But I think there, and again, tinfoil. I think there was a situation that they knew that Logan Paul was going to be getting this card.
Yep.
Therefore, by giving him this 10 and then showing it off at WrestleMania,
Hmm.
it was a no-brainer.
Huge publicity for PSA. They would have
No-brainer.
been, for publicity wise, they would have been stupid not to give the thing
Yeah.
the 10. Because I think that thing was graded like 5 times prior and always came back a 9. And then all of a sudden, there's Logan, it gets a 10, and Logan Paul buys it, what, 2-3 days later? Logan Paul had it in his possession after grading. So you can't tell me that there was, like you said, that potential that the seller of it contacted PSA and said, "Hey, this is going to Logan Paul for PS, or as a PS. If we can get a PSA 10, it's going to Logan Paul. Will be on WrestleMania." And all of a sudden, like you said, it's still a business, and that's where I have real issues with grading in general. Is it's still a business for them? If there's an opportunity for some free publicity, in their mind, what's the harm of bumping that from a 9 to a 10 on their end? Because they always got the ability to say, well, it's just a different grader didn't see the thing that was wrong with it that the last grader did.
Yeah.
So, so.
No, that's very true. So again, Ivy, who's my middleman, she told me based on the card, if it was up to her, and she's a pre-grader, she's a grader by trade. She grades diamonds.
Okay.
And so she uses those skills over into Pokemon to be able to pre-grade. And I think in one of her last submissions that she sent off 60 something cards to PSA. I know I'm butchering the numbers, but it's gonna be like 30 something, like mid 30s to high 30s, were PSA 10s. The rest of them were PSA 9s, with the exception of maybe 2 to 3 cards at PSA 8s. And that's just, again, going back to her skills of being able to pre-grade and whatnot. So she was very selective and she sent them off. So she told me, based off my card, I would not have given this a CGC 9.
Oh,
So PSA, I don't think this is a PSA 9 either. But with that said, is PSA just looking at it as, yeah, we'll take your free money and give you the like grade.
yeah.
We'll give you the
Equivalent.
like
Yep.
grade and we'll take your money, and sure, we'll put it on our slab.
Exactly.
Just to take your money.
They don't even have to do anything. They just have to print a label and stick it, right back in there. Because the best part is about PSA is they don't even have to subgrade it.
Right, exactly. Right,
they won't do subgrading, so there's not even like they have to make a justifiable number. They just stick a 9 on it and put a tag in the slab, press it in, and here you go. Thanks for your $100.
So while there's a I feel very, very not confident. I feel comfortable enough knowing that I'm gonna get a PSA 9. There's a slim chance that says it's gonna come back in a CGC slab, but yeah, you never know. But I feel like as a company that's all about making money, because all companies are all about making money, they're just gonna say, yeah, we'll take your, whatever, the fee is, and yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Because let's be honest with you, I always question that regrading anyways, especially cross grading. If you don't break the slab yourself and you send it to CG or PSA or CGC in the slab, how do they truly grade that card, in the slab?
Yeah, that's true. Because a lot of times, including
you
myself,
can't see it.
There'll be so many times where I'll buy a card, and once I get it in hand, it was like, I didn't see this, and I'm the one that will zoom in. I'll zoom in on the card, make sure that there's X amount of whitening depending on the grade and whatnot, and then I'll have it, and I was like, where did this speck come from? Where did this little black dot come from? And it's not on the card. It's
on the case.
It's on the case.
Yeah.
And it's
so
for sure.
That's just the question I got is how can you, if you send this in to cross grade this, they should have to take it out of the case in order to truly cross grade that. Because you can't see the edges, you can't see the corners, you can't see, a case has got, the second you get them, they've got scuffs and scratches on them. So how do they see what the surface is of either side of this card inside of a case? there's no true way to do that unless you take that out and do it.
So yeah, I don't want to call it. I'm not an advocate for PSA. I'm
No.
just a PSA collector because just once again, psychologically, it's just everything is PSA and aesthetically, it just looks better to me.
Mhm.
CGC, the reason why I don't like CGC is because of that blue label. To me, they have the best slab, but they
Yep.
have the worst label. It's not a neutral color.
No.
Someone should have thought about that, way in the beginning. That Pokemon
Hmm.
being such a colorful thing. Then again, comics is, they're very colorful as well. But yeah, they BGS, which I don't like that slab either. The way that it's shaped
It's
and
it's bulky.
pointy and
Yeah.
but their label is the neutral color.
Hmm.
So CGC, why they didn't think about that, I don't know. But regardless, it is what it is now. But yeah, that's the reason why I've always gone with PSA on top of the markets and what the markets dictate that the pricing for a PSA is always going to be premium, or at least today. So
Hmm.
therefore, it's like, yep, I'm going with PSA. With that said, I know that all of these grading companies are very subjective. And one of my favorite lines, and I'm going to put this on a shirt for Collecticon, it came from Dan. I had to pull up the picture just so I quote it correctly. But he said it on one of his videos, and I commented that I'm putting this on a shirt. I think it was actually a live. Nope, it was a comment to his last video before doing his live. If you recall him doing his first year anniversary, I believe, first year
Yeah.
anniversary live.
Yep.
And so his quote says, "PSA grading, where the standards are made up and the grades don't matter."
From whose line is it, anyways? Nice.
He did it.
That is perfect.
And so be me being, I'm willing to call myself a hater, towards CGC, like especially now with all the crap that's come out and whatnot. BGS, again, I just prefer PSA because that's always been the bulk of my
Yeah.
purchases, and I just kind of naturally grown to that. But I can acknowledge that it's all subjective. But yeah, the fact that I'm going to put that on a shirt kind of says that I'm not biased. I'm actually
No,
unbiased, and it doesn't matter. It's just a preference from a
it
aesthetic
is.
standpoint.
And that's what I always said about grading. The only reason I like graded slabs, honestly, is just to protect the cards. And yeah, value wise, people do put more value on the 10. But overall, for grading, to me, it's just, I'm not drawn to it in any way. I usually tend to stay away from graded stuff, except for stuff I want personally. And like I said, it's just protection more than anything, or displayability. It's easier to display a slab than it is to display a raw card. And like I said, that's why even Flareons, I don't care what the grade is on them. I mean, I try and get above a 5. I want them in decent condition, but it doesn't matter if it's a 7 to me. It doesn't make any difference. It's just going to be out in display in my collection, anyways.
Okay. I'm definitely a snob when it comes to grade at the very minimum. I'm definitely a snob. I'm a snob for the grading company and the grade. So, but I'm
Yeah.
one of those that says, give me the 9. I'm fine with the 9. And
Hmm.
again, Dan Ketchum So shout out to him because I actually learned a lot from Dan Ketchum. But the way he articulates the reason why you should be a 9 collector versus a 10, it's kind of what you alluded to before. If you crack out a 10 and you send it 100 times just to experiment,
Yep.
there's going to be a percentage, a healthy percentage, that's going to come back a 9.
Yep.
Today, maybe even more 9s than a 10.
Correct.
And until someone tests that, who knows? But we
Yeah.
know that's going to be the
Oh,
case.
yeah.
So the
Well,
fact that there's that subjectivity, why buy a 10 when you can just own the 9, and with the change left over,
mhm.
go buy yourself another card? Also, with that said, psychologically, we know that the 10 will always garner a premium because it's, at the end of the day, it's a prestigious grade,
Yeah.
and people will always give it that premium.
Yeah. And that's just it. I mean, and if you're not looking at selling it, and if you're not looking at, if it's for your own personal collection, is a 9 really a bad thing compared to a 10?
Yeah.
Like you said, to me, it's just that guy had a bad day, so he knocked it that day and knocked it down a grade because he had a bad morning or something. Could even be the reason that happened. So, I think we got time for one more question if someone's got it, and then probably call her a night here.
Yeah, no problem. Make it a good one, guys. Good question.
Long discussion item. How to
No,
keep him free?
I appreciate your time, man. I really do.
Oh no, this is fun. I enjoy sitting down and having these discussions, and like I said, sometimes the chat makes you think about things like the
Yeah.
stock market question from Andrew. That was a good one, though.
Sure, Andrew. Andrew really, made that conversation go for sure. It made me think. I like that. Regardless of what my standpoint is, whatever my view is, wherever I've cemented,
Yeah.
I always like the counter argument. I will always have a nice conversation, and a little bit of what we talked before. I really do dislike the fact that sometimes we can get, just to generalize, we can get into this big like argumentative debate instead of just having a passionate, debate,
Yeah.
counter back and forth. I really, at the end of the day, with all due respect, I don't care what your views or perspective is within the hobby. I just care to know what your views and perspective is, because if I just can gain a grain of knowledge within that conversation was worth it. And just within this 2 hours and change that we've talked, I've already gained quite a bit, just talking to you. And I know you're probably heavier in the investing compared to me.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, for sure, I've already gained a little bit, quite a bit of information
Well,
today.
the thing is, I always would like to be, my ultimate goal is to transition into a collector. I use the investment as a vehicle to not strip money from our accounts, from my personal accounts,
The honey
to
pot.
collect the items that I want.
Exactly.
So there's multiple facets, there's multiple ways you can use the hobby, and that's my biggest reason for doing it is I'm trying to reduce the amount that I take out of my family's budget to have my fun and have my collection items in holding.
I think this is a nice question to end it with. You know what? I'm just gonna ask this question, and then we'll end it with Mace's question of what's your favorite donut. We're gonna end it with what's your favorite donut. But if I may ask the last question,
Yeah.
and this is just for you, not for me. Do you have any childhood collection yet? Binder cards, whatnot?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. I still have cards from when I was a childhood in binders. I've saved them. They were actually cards I played because I actually did play in tournaments all the way until 2006. So
Nice.
I actually have binders. Now, where they're all located is the trick because my mom's moving them around, but she says they're still here. So they're in storage somewhere, but I do still have those binders. And
Okay. So you've never gone through these binders.
I
When was
have
the
not
last time you've gone through these binders?
2006.
So you can have some crazy cards in there that
Most
you
of them
probably
in the
forgot
binders
about.
were played because I did play. So a
Okay.
lot of them are not complete, like first editions. There are first edition cards. I know I have a first edition Charizard. I have first edition Blastoise, and I've got all the big threes. And I can tell you right now that they're not in pristine condition. They've been
Shit.
used. They've been played in different decks.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah. So I've got cards all the way different playing decks. So pretty much when I quit in 2006, I sold all of my investing stuff to a friend, and he actually still has those booster boxes. I talked to him. He still has my first edition booster boxes that I sold him back in '06.
Wow.
So I know where my booster boxes are that I actually
That's crazy.
collected while I was playing in time. But I kept all of my playing decks in binders, so as my deck retired, I would put the cards in the binder and then redo my battle decks all the way through. So all the way up until 2006 when I just finally I sold all my stuff off and I put my binders away, and I just kind of stopped because I knew that if I didn't completely like stop, if I kept playing, stop investing and buying booster boxes and those kind of things and putting them away, and I kept playing, I was eventually going to just start buying stuff again. And I
Hmm.
wasn't in a place at 2006 and beyond to continue to do that. I was college expenses, housing expenses. I was building career. I was doing, starting relationships at that point in life. And that's why I stopped.
So as a pure collector and as a fan first, I would challenge you as the content creator,
Mm-hmm.
find those binders, document from beginning to end. That is amazing content, because the fact that you have these binders from 1999 to 2006, that
Mm-hmm.
would be amazing content today, because
Yeah.
mostly everyone have already dug up their binders to sell,
Yeah.
right? You still have those that you haven't seen since 2006.
I know.
That's amazing content.
I've left them because, the thing is that's like a lot of people go, well, why don't you get them out and grade them? Go everybody, of course, right away. Go grade these cards. Go grade these. I'm not grading these cards. Because number one, if I grade them, that's going to give me a reason to sell them because I got to pay for the grading. I got all the expense. Some of them cards are going to come back potentially expensive because they are first edition Neo cards. They're first edition, base set cards inside. And granted, if they even come back, some of them come back even as a 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, they may not come back as a 10 because of scratches or something like that. But still, if they come back at 9, how expensive are some of those first edition cards? At a 9.
Sound cheesy, but this is giving me butterflies and put in my stomach. Dude, that needs to be content. That needs to be your goal this summer.
I know. I've actually said that to my wife several times. I just need to go on a scavenger hunt and go through my parents' storage and really find those things and bring them out because it first of all, it'd be just really cool for me to find them and just put them out there. But like you said, there'd be some really good content to show what's actually there.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. All right, let's end it with the favorite question of the night. Mason, what's your favorite donut?
Persian with maple frosting.
Okay. I've never heard of that one, but all right.
It's just a cinnamon. It's a cinnamon roll with. They call it a Persian. It's a certain cinnamon roll with a frosting on it.
That sounds very exotic.
Quick Trip, man. Quick Trip. We're from Wisconsin. We have Quick Trip.
For me, it's just a simple glazed donut. It's just I'm not a big donut guy. I'm really not because I'm not a coffee guy. I don't drink coffee at all. So, but once in a while, I'll have a glazed donut with my hot chocolate. So there it is. Question of the night. Northwoods, thank you for having me on, man. This is always a blast. I always say it. I'm a fan first, but I still find it hilarious that people have me on their channel because I'm like, I've got nothing to offer other than hopefully great conversation. But I appreciate it because this always makes my day, always makes my week. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for coming by and thanks for spending time with me. Absolutely some good information today. And I don't think we had anybody mad in the chat, which I think is we talked investing and nobody came through the screen at us. So
that's true. We talked investing and no one yelled.
I was gonna say we didn't have anybody too mad at us. So thank you guys in the chat for not getting offended by our discussion. So
thanks, guys.
But otherwise, thanks guys, and we will.